Chapter 159. Moonlight Treasure Chest. It should be the Moonlight Treasure Chest, right? Slender Waist Dance still wanted to argue with Gu Fei. See you at the teleportation portal. Han family young master waved at Gu Fei. See you at the teleportation portal. Gu Fei nodded helplessly. However, Slender Waist Dance suddenly shouted, "Got it." Got what? Gu Fei asked. The fire wheel in the sky was already forming, and the flames on the ground were already rising. There was no time to explain. Slender Waist Dance flew toward Gu Fei and landed on Gu Fei's back. What are you doing? Gu Fei tried his best not to be knocked down by her. Slender Waist Dance took out an item from her pocket as she flew. She shook it in the wind. Before Gu Fei could see what it was, it turned into a white light and landed on the ground below them. The ground glowed with white light and enveloped them. Teleportation portal. Fuck. Han family young master was a veteran. He instantly figured out what it was. The teleportation portal didn't differentiate between friend and foe. As long as one entered its range, they would be able to enjoy the teleportation effect. Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance were obviously in the teleportation portal. If the two of them flew away, wouldn't the Han family young master be the only one being attacked? Han family young master couldn't stand such a situation. He immediately rushed into the portal. Aya, don't be so polite. You don't have to send me off. Gu Fei smiled and raised his leg to kick her. In terms of combat, Han family young master was much weaker than Gu Fei. How could he dodge this kick? He took a few steps back before regaining his footing. He looked at Gu Fei again. Gu Fei's figure was already blurry. He was smiling and waving at him. You're too cruel. You're too cruel. As Slender Waist Dance mumbled, the white light flashed and the two of them disappeared. Almost at the same time, the fire wheel fell from the sky and the 1,000 layers of flame tree bloomed, engulfing the Han family young master as he screamed. The system's teleportation happened in the blink of an eye. Before the Han family young master died completely, Gu Fei and Slim Waist Dance had already reappeared in another place. Where is this place? Gu Fei looked around at the surrounding mountains and rivers. Of course it's still within the map of the match. This teleportation scroll doesn't have any coordinates. If you use it, you'll be teleported randomly. Thin Waist Dance said. Teleportation scroll. Gu Fei mumbled. When he showed the Windchaser coat of arms to the other members of the Child Elite group, the group of experts were still exclaiming that there was actually teleportation in parallel worlds. Look at the Skinny Waist Dance, directly carrying a teleportation scroll. Money warriors are indeed different. Slim Waist Dance looked at the current coordinates and exclaimed, "Ah, it's so far from there. There's no hurry." Gu Fei smiled and opened his friend list to send a message to the Han family young master. How's it going? Are you dead yet? The Han family young master was an experienced cleric. Perhaps he could use the time difference between the two spells to heal himself, that way he could still be saved. However, today was clearly not the Han family young master's lucky day. The two spells worked together seamlessly, there was no time difference. The Han family young master was sent out of the guild building's teleportation circle on the spot. He was gritting his teeth. That's why I hate money players the most. They always have weird things to ruin our tactics. Han family young master said hatefully. Yeah, I'll look down on her for you. Gu Fei replied and ignored the young master of the Han family. He then went to take a look at some of the information announced by the system. Only then did he know how tragic the situation of the reborn purple crystal was. While Gu Fei and Skinny Waist Dance were dealing with the Han family young master's group, the other girls were already engaged in battle with the people surrounding them. The system kept sending out notifications, informing them of the deaths on both sides. By the time Gu Fei looked at the system notification, the reincarnated Amethyst only had 7 people left, while the Singing for Wine team, including the ones that Gu Fei and Skinny Waist Dance took care of, had a total of 29 deaths. That was not even 1/20th of the Singing for Wine team's members. While Gu Fei was looking at the notifications, the reincarnated Amethyst had lost another 2 members, leaving them with 5. He could finally see the name list of his own people. Other than Gu Fei and Skinny Waist Dance, the reincarnated Amethyst was left with July, Fiercely, and Lu Xia. Xiao Wu, Qianli, Lu Xia, where are you guys? July asked in the guild channel. She did not mention Fiercely. It seemed like Fiercely was with her. Qianli and I just used a teleportation scroll to escape from their formation, Skinny Waist Dance replied. I'm in the forest nearby. No one noticed me for now, Lu Xia replied. Fiercely and I managed to escape with Luoluo's help, July sighed. It's a pity that sis Luoluo couldn't escape with us, Fiercely lamented. What should we do now? Lu Xia asked. Luoluo just sent a message asking Qianli. She said that you have experience. July's words were filled with doubt. Currently, only Luoluo and Lu Xia knew that Gu Fei was a member of the child elite group in Amethyst. Although Skinny Waist Dance had entered the elite group's meeting, she did not know that they were from the child elite group. Luoluo's words were naturally referring to the time when Gu Fei participated in the child elite group's battle against the Mu Yun mercenary group. That was why she said that he had experience. I do have some experience fighting against the many, Gu Fei said. Is that so? Then what do you think we should do? July asked. Let me think about it. Gu Fei replied as he hurriedly sent a message to the Han family young master. Hey, we only have 5 people left. How can we beat you? Gu Fei called for help and found the game's tactical expert, Han family young master. The expert's answer was only one word, fuck off. Don't be like that. I've already condemned Skinny Waist Dance's shameful actions on your behalf, Gu Fei said. To be honest, it really is a challenge for 5 people to defeat 600. Han family young master said. Yeah. Gu Fei felt that the Han family young master was a bit moved and hurriedly agreed. I really want to try it. Come, I'll listen to your orders. As expected, he was moved. Gu Fei was happy. But there's no other way. Why? Gu Fei didn't understand. Because I've already helped Dancing Wine come up with the best plan to deal with the 5 of you. My plan has always been perfect, so perfect that even I can't think of any loopholes that can be broken through. I really can't help you. Han family young master sent a message. I really want to beat you up right now. Gu Fei clenched his teeth. That'll have to wait until you come out. Why don't you find a place with a lot of people and you'll be able to come out quickly? How about it, do you want me to ask for your coordinates? Just you wait. Gu Fei said. Heh. Han family young master laughed coldly. Coward. Gu Fei sent a message to another person. Don't call me a coward, call me a coward savior. The person replied. Are you free? Do you know Little Ray's bar? If you don't, just ask around. Go there, then go to the second room. There's a man who looks like a woman inside. Go beat him up, Gu Fei said. What's up? I'm giving you a chance to practice real combat. Don't kill him, just use your martial arts to beat him up. Remember to cover your face. Cover my face? Why? Don't ask, we'll talk about it later. Go quickly, finish it quickly. Got it. Coward Savior received the order and left. Gu Fei let out a sigh of relief and closed the chat channel. He looked to his side and saw that Slender Waist Dance was staring straight at him. What are you doing? Gu Fei asked. I'm asking you, what are you doing? Everyone's waiting for your strategy in the channel. Slender Waist Dance said. I can't. Gu Fei said in the channel, there's a pervert who designed a strategy for them. I heard that it's specifically targeted at the 5 of us. Looks like it'll be hard to win this time. Although Han family young master had a lot of things that made people unhappy, Gu Fei was still in awe of this guy's strategy. If it wasn't for Slender Waist Dance's unexpected teleportation scroll, the two of them would have already been defeated by his strategy. What's the strategy? July asked. I don't know yet. Gu Fei said. Then how do you know it'll be hard? Fiercely had an opinion. Because this person is very perverted, so the strategy he designed must be very perverted as well. Gu Fei patiently explained. Who is it? Women's gossipy hearts would never die. A pervert. Gu Fei was also tight-lipped. Although he called him perverted to his heart's content, it was still within the scope of his own imagination. If he exposed Han family young master's name, the nature of the situation would be different. Gu Fei didn't want to sully his image. Che. All the ladies replied in unison, obviously dissatisfied with Gu Fei's answer. Among them, Slender Waist Dance directly leaned against Gu Fei's ear and Che. Gu Fei felt like his ear was about to be cut off by her. No matter what, we're currently behind 29 to 46 in terms of points. If we want to win, we have to at least catch up, right? Miss Lu Xia was a weirdo who idolized Brother Yu, so she was very sensitive to data and information. That's right, that's right. Slender Waist Dance agreed. You guys hide well. Leave this to me and Qianli. Slender Waist Dance's suggestion was also very humane. Although Chiyue and the other two's levels were considered high among the rebirth amethyst crystals, they were only below average when compared to singing to wine. Let's go. Slender Waist Dance announced to Gu Fei. Don't rush. Gu Fei said to her. What's wrong? Let me eat a banana first. Why do you want to eat it again? You always want to eat a banana at a critical moment. You're so annoying. Slender Waist Dance was dissatisfied. I'm a little sick of eating it all the time. Gu Fei sighed. Then I'll eat an apple this time. Chapter 160. Gu Fei PK dropped an apple and recovered his mana. Only then did he and Slender Waist Dance set out together, shouldering the heavy responsibility of reversing the score from 29 to 46. Currently, there were a total of 676 opponents. None of them were weak, they were all elites carefully selected by Singing Wine. The two had serious expressions on their faces, and their footsteps were sneaky. 676 people. As an expert, it was necessary to have a basic sense of judgment. If the two of them could face off against 676 experts of the same level, then the game company's developers could stand on top of the city wall and perform the sword-drawing technique together, until all of them failed to return their weapons. Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance had the same thoughts, they just hoped to meet some Singing Wine guys who were alone. Of course, with their strength, the concept of being alone was quite big. As long as there were less than 10 people, they could be considered alone. Since the map was so big, it was obviously not a good idea to blindly run into them. The two first climbed up to a high ground, and looked around. There was nothing, and then they climbed up to the next high ground. Just like that, they walked towards the center of the map, and didn't see any traces of Singing Wine members. July and the other two were also safe and sound. Not only were they not harassed at all, but they also didn't see a single Singing Wine member. What's going on? Slender Waist Dance mumbled to Gu Fei. The two climbed up to the fourth hill. Are they going to hide from us when they have so many people? Slender Waist Dance said. Hide from us when they have so many people. Gu Fei mulled over these words, and vaguely thought of something. At this time, Slender Waist Dance, who had climbed up the hill first, began to shout, Look, over there. Gu Fei came to the top of the hill, and looked in the direction that Slender Waist Dance pointed to. He instantly sucked in a breath of cold air. Another small mountain not far from this one was actually densely packed with people at this time. The squirming crowd was like maggots piling up on the hillside. So disgusting. Slender Waist Dance pursed her lips and frowned, looking like she was about to vomit. Was this the Han family young master's perverted strategy? Did he want to disgust us to death? Gu Fei was also shocked and broke into a cold sweat. He quickly sent a message to the coward's savior, hit him harder. What are they doing? Thin Waist Dance said as she rubbed her chest. Gu Fei observed for a moment and saw that the crowd seemed to be moving towards the top of the mountain. Judging from the scale of the crowd, it seemed that all the people from drinking and singing were gathered there. How could a mere 5 people who had been reborn as amethyst crystals be able to obtain points from them by concentrating their strength and looking down from above? Gu Fei finally understood the strategy of the Han family young master. This tactic was really thinking too highly of Gu Fei and Slim Waist Dance. 676 people against 2, and they actually adopted a defensive stance. Although it made others feel that it was very spineless and shameless, Gu Fei had to admit that there was no solution to this move at the moment. That's shameless. Gu Fei cursed. He opened his friend list again and selected the coward savior. He had already written a message saying, kill him, but when he was about to send it, he hesitated and gave up on it. After all, it was not easy to level up. He could not be impulsive. What do we do now? Slender Waist Dance was also a top-notch expert. She realized the severity of the situation after a few glances. They were fighting 676 people by themselves. The only way to win was to ambush them. However, drinking and singing had occupied the top of a mountain surrounded by plains. They had a 360-degree field of vision. No matter which direction Gu Fei and the others charged from, they would be able to see everything. Moreover, drinking and singing had a large number of people. The archers and sorcerers numbered in the hundreds. With so many people attacking from afar, even if Gu Fei combined with Slender Waist Dance to increase his speed, he would not have a chance to get close. It would be difficult to close the gap of 17 points. Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance sat cross-legged on the top of the mountain, discussing their plan. They did not mind being exposed to the hundreds of eyes on the opposite mountain. However, the other side was completely unmoved. It was as if they did not see the two of them. They continued to firmly occupy their geographical position. Plan 1 had failed. It seemed that drinking and singing had already made up their mind to sit on the top of the mountain until the end of the match. They insisted on not taking the initiative to attack. Plan 2. Slender Waist Dance rushed down the mountain. She arrived at a place one step away from the other side's attack range. She shouted, "If you're a man, come down and fight me to the death." Then she shouted, "Who dares to kill me?" 3 times. As a result, the guys on the mountain shouted, "Beauty, do a somersault and sing a song." In her anger, Slender Waist Dance was almost provoked up the mountain by them. Fortunately, Gu Fei arrived in time and carried her back. Returning to the top of the mountain resentfully, Slender Waist Dance said angrily, "Do you want me to dance naked for them to make a move?" Gu Fei glanced at her and said indifferently, "It's useless. That's just visual entertainment. They just need to move their eyeballs." Plan 3. 2 people and 676 people on the 2 mountains. Both sides continued to sit in protest. After an unknown amount of time, a group of 3 people came from the east. 2 beautiful grandmasters of combat, one in front and one at the back, were protecting a weak thief girl. The 3 of them were not in a hurry. They took small steps and resolutely walked half a circle around the foot of Mountain 676. The mountain was silent. The 676 players peeked around but did not make a sound. After half a circle, the 3 girls suddenly waved at the top of the mountain. "My friends on the mountain, how are you?" It was as if a group of demons had suddenly appeared in the mountain. Hundreds of players shouted together, "How are you, beauties?" Even so, their formation was not disrupted. The 3 of them slowly walked the remaining half of the circle. They sighed and walked towards the top of the mountain. Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance shook their heads. Drinking and singing were really stubborn. Even characters like July, Lower Willow, and Fiercely, which were easy for them, they did not act rashly. They were really too calm. The 5 people sitting on the top of the mountain frowned. "Forget it. We're lucky to be able to make it this far. July comforted them. As the guild leader, she had a clear understanding of their strength. Yesterday's victory over Everlasting Among Flowers was already suspicious enough. The farce in the forest had put many girls in danger, but in the end, they were let go by the other side. If it happened once or twice, it could be said that the other side was careless and they were lucky. However, this situation repeated from the beginning to the end. Everyone knew that the other side was not serious. Today, although Young Master's elite group had won against many with fewer people as an example, they were now behind in points, and the other side, who had more than 120 times their number, had actually chosen to be on the defensive and stall for time. This was probably because they were afraid of Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance, these two excessively powerful existences. If it weren't for these two, this match would have ended long ago. July sighed. This bunch of good-for-nothings. Slender Waist Dance pointed at the opposite mountain and scolded. So many people and they still use such a method. So despicable and shameless. Gu Fei did not follow her to vent his anger. Instead, he calmly asked Lu Xia about what he saw when he circled around the other side's mountain. Other than the outermost circle of archers, the rest are mainly mages. Lu Xia said. They can carry out long-range attacks in a 360-degree range. Looking at the number of mages, they can at least blast out a circle of 30 meters wide. As for the archers, they can probably extend the circle for 30 meters longer than the mages. But this refers to normal attacks. If they use skills, the range of sniping is longer than normal attacks. Homing arrows are closer. It's not the same. Gu Fei nodded. The fact that the guild leader of Singing and Wine was a mage directly affected the level of cooperation of the mages in this guild. It could be seen from the magic isolation on Gu Fei and the large circle of tens of meters around Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dance. If I finish the spell chant and die before the spell attacks, will my spell continue to attack? Gu Fei suddenly asked a very basic question. It won't. Lu Xia replied. According to the official settings, spell attacks are not a physical phenomenon. After the spell is chanted, it will still be affected by the mage's mana. So if the caster dies, the spell damage will immediately disappear. But the additional effects will still exist. For example, the burning status after being hit by double flame flash. Oh, what should we do? Quickly think of a way. Slender Waist Dance patted Gu Fei. I have an idea. Gu Fei looked at the girls. What idea? They asked. After Gu Fei said this, they were all stunned. Will it work? Let's do some calculations. Gu Fei pulled out a small stick and laid on the ground. He asked them some relevant data and started doing arithmetic problems. In the end, he let out a long sigh. Looks like it's about right. Let's bet. The four girls nodded. After cleaning up, Gu Fei stood up and waved his hand. Let's go. The fourth plan was executed. The five of them went down the mountain and casually circled around the foot of the opponent's mountain while challenging the people up the mountain. It seemed like Singing to Wine had already gotten used to this challenge and was too lazy to talk back. However, the archers and mages were already on standby. The five of them circled around and gradually moved up, gradually getting closer to the sniping range of the enemy archers. Singing to Wine only lined up in a circle with the archers at the outermost edge. This was a common formation used in large-scale group battles in the game. The archers were very limited in a chaotic battle with multiple professions. Their attacks needed vision and channels. If they were mixed in a chaotic battle, there was no guarantee of that. At first, some people used a crisscrossed formation, which seemed to guarantee the archers some vision and attack channels. But soon after, it was proven that this wasn't a smart move. With this formation, the archers' attack range was limited to the front. The way to break it was extremely simple. They just had to run diagonally. If the archers followed a diagonal target and turned their bows, they would soon find that they were aiming at their comrades' butts. Before they could think of a solution, the easiest way was to throw the archers to the front. And Singing to Wine's trademark was obviously not the archers. The well-trained mage's formation was their trademark, so the archers were just symbolically lined up in a circle. This was the first guarantee that the fourth plan could be executed smoothly. Chapter 161. If the archer's arrow formation could reach the level of the movie Hero, then even Superman could be shot down from the sky. However, Singing to Wine only had 100 archers at most, and they didn't pay much attention to the formation. It was obviously incomparable to that crazy situation. The current situation was good news for the 5 of them. If the outer layer was seriously set up with an arrow formation, then with the speed of July, Fiercely, and Lu Xia, it would be wishful thinking for them to break through. In the current situation, if Gu Fei and Slim Waist Dance attracted some of the firepower, there was still a chance. However, breaking through the archer's arrow formation was only the first step of the plan. If they lost people here, then there would be no way to continue. They had to find a more reliable way to break through. Look, it's over there. At this time, Lu Xia raised his head and said to the 4 of them. The terrain in the game was artificially diversified, and there was no scientific basis. Singing to Wine's hilltop strategy didn't require the height of the mountain, but the terrain was simple. For example, a hillside with a large forest on it would be easy for the enemy to sneak up. The mountain in front of them basically met the requirements of Singing to Wine's strategy. Unfortunately, there was nothing perfect in this world. The hillside that Lu Xia was pointing at now had uneven terrain. Compared to a forest, this little bit of uneven terrain was really nothing, and the line of sight was still very wide. It was just that in such a place, there were many cover, and the power of the archers was quite limited. The 5 of them pretended to casually walk in that direction. The 5 of them are all concentrated on the hillside. Should we rush down and finish them off? That way, we will win directly. At this time, the guild channel of Singing to Wine was filled with such voices. Speaking of which, most of the people in the guild felt that it was inconceivable to use such a passive strategy to deal with a mere 5 people. No. The guild leader of Singing to Wine, against the current, was very calm. The opponent's sorcerer's magic attack is extremely strong. A successful release of an area of effect spell could possibly turn the tables. Rashly taking the offensive may give him a chance, and then if Slim Waist Dance escapes, it will be really difficult to surround her in such a large map. More troublesome, she may very well have a teleportation scroll that can teleport. So everyone, hold your ground, don't give them a chance, and pay special attention to that sorcerer. As long as he can't release the spell, the opponent has no chance of turning the tables. With the guild leader's words, the members no longer had any objections, and continued to pay close attention to the 5's movements. When the 5 of them moved to the defensive zone, the players in that zone would immediately be on high alert. Ah, they're approaching Area S. Someone reported in the guild channel. The so-called Zone S was the pothole that Gu Fei and the others had their eyes on. It was the only blemish on the mountain top. I know. The guild leader, against the current, replied indifferently. He didn't need to report because he had already seen. If they were to choose a desperate charge, then Area S was indeed the best choice. Going against the current believed that the other side would make the judgment of such an expert, which was why he had stayed in this area to personally command. As expected, the sword of, the Sang of Dynasty. Are all 5 of them here? Despite seeing the 5 of them together, Zhang Xian still couldn't change his mind in the slightest. Apart from the fact that the young master of the Han family had emphasized the mage's abilities, the fact that he had witnessed Gu Fei and Slim Waist Dance escape using teleportation was another big reason. Teleportation was a foreign concept to most players. Were they invincible when teleported? Could they still attack when teleported? If the sorcerer finished chanting and was teleported away, would the spell still be effective? Because there were too many questions, against the current had to be careful. He would rather win in an ugly way than become a laughingstock like the cloud-herding guild. After the 5 arrived at Zone S, they didn't stop and immediately charged into the range of the archers. However, at the same time, they hid behind cover. The archers who had released their arrows all missed their targets. They shook their heads helplessly and subconsciously looked at their guild leader, hoping to get some instructions. Just shoot some arrows to distract them. Against the current said. The archers in this zone weren't able to perform well, and it would be hard for them to ask for too much. As such, the archers just shot their arrows. As expected, there wasn't any threat. The 5 men, each seeking cover, disappeared in and out of sight like moles on the hillside. Sometimes, a figure would flash out from behind a mound, and sometimes, half a head would pop out from the hole. It was as shocking as a game of whack-a-mole. The players in Against the Current imagined having a hammer in their hands. If they found something wrong, they would hammer it until the enemy was flattened. Helplessly, he watched as the 5 of them flashed forward for 50 to 60 meters, and finally gathered behind a certain mound of dirt. A person who sings to wine is depressed. 2 more steps from this mound, and they would be within the range of their spells. Sorcerers' AoE spells didn't matter if they could see them or not. At this moment, the 2 sides were more than 30 meters apart. The players in Against the Current's hearts were pounding. Earlier, when the other party was advancing in a flickering manner, everyone had the impulse to take the initiative to charge forward and carpet bomb the other party. However, the guild leader didn't say anything, so no one dared to act rashly. Have they been hiding there for a long time? Against the Current suddenly asked someone beside him. The person was very surprised, but he still looked at the time and answered after a while, about 11 seconds. This question revealed that Against the Current, who looked calm and composed, was actually very nervous. Seeing that the 5 of them didn't move, his heart immediately sank. Every second felt like a year. Guild leader, how about? There were many who couldn't hold back. At this moment, they realized that the guild leader's mentality was actually quite similar to everyone else's. Someone immediately suggested taking the initiative to attack. No. Stay the course, Against the Current said. Although they all had the same emotions, some people would be influenced by their emotions and make decisions, while others could control their emotions. Against the Current was clearly the latter. He was a talent. Just as the policy of not changing to deal with changes was passed down, change came. A figure suddenly sprang out from behind the mound and ran out horizontally. Quick, shoot! Seeing that the other party didn't immediately disappear into the other cover, Against the Current hurriedly shouted. The archers had been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. They raised their bows and let loose one after another. Arrows rained down from the hillside. However, the person's speed was too fast. Most of them shot empty arrows. A few of them caught on because they used the skill, homing arrow. However, considering the person's speed, it was really a problem if the homing arrow that caught on could catch up before the skill's duration expired. While everyone was shooting arrows, 3 figures stepped out from behind the mound. The archers hadn't even finished preparing their second shot when they saw one of the 3 people grab the waist of the person on the left with both hands. With a shake of his arms, he actually threw the person on the right out. Then, he turned around and grabbed the person on the right, swinging his arms again. Then, the arrows arrived. The 2 people flew up, and the person was instantly shot dead. Not bad, beautiful throw. One of the people in the sky praised. However, when he looked down, July had already turned into a white light among the arrows. Spell formation. Some of the people from the Singing to Wine formation were stunned. For a moment, they forgot that they had also entered the range of the spell formation. They only came back to their senses after Against the Current's loud reminder. The chanting immediately began, but no one expected that a figure would suddenly appear in the Singing to Wine formation at this moment. He was bare-handed, not seeking to kill, but pushing with all his might. His targets were all the mages who were shouting, "Heavenly Fire Wheel." During the chanting of an area of effect spell, the mages couldn't be attacked or moved. This push was a simple and effective destruction. Not only was the spell directly interrupted, but the person who was pushed knocked into a person. The person who was hit staggered 2 steps and was immediately interrupted. Although the close combat profession quickly came forward to deal with this thief, there were a few gaps in the large area of the spell formation that should have appeared in all directions. Gu Fei and Fiercely, who were previously thrown by July, met in the air. Fiercely reached out with both hands to grab Gu Fei. She looked at the direction and threw Gu Fei in the most incomplete path of the spell formation. She herself fell to the ground, and was instantly burnt into a white light by the 1,000 layers flame of the flaming tree. Qianli, you can do it. Lu Xia was entangled with the opponent's close combat profession. It was obvious that she couldn't hold on for long. Gu Fei had no complaints since the girls could carry out their tactics to this extent. Gu Fei flew through the spell formation and landed in the middle of the singing and whine formation. Strange cries rang out from below. Facing the attack from the sky, the players didn't know how to block it. In the air, Gu Fei swung his arms behind him and threw off a layer of his coat. The dark spirit robe inside started to flutter. Gu Fei swung his sword and the coat that was thrown off was picked up on his shoulder. Then he shouted and swung his sword. He fell to the ground in front of everyone's bewildered gazes. Dust flew. Gu Fei was ashamed. He had actually forgotten about this. He had used the body-hugging throw to fly over, so the system required him to fall to the ground. Trying to balance his body in the air was futile. But misfortune could be a blessing in disguise. Gu Fei's embarrassing fall turned out to be a very good bait for the enemy. When the people who were drinking and singing saw that Gu Fei was not dead after the fall, they all surrounded him. Gu Fei didn't bother to get up. He rolled on the ground and used his sword as a blade, using the Earth Hall blade technique. He didn't forget to chant Dual Flame Flash as he swung it in a circle. 6. Gu Fei was extremely happy. This was the highest record he had ever achieved using Dual Flame Flash. He didn't expect it to be achieved under such circumstances. On the other side, Countercurrent received the notification that they had lost 6 points. His eyelids twitched and he shouted, "Don't be rash. Spread out, spread out. Archers, archers, come over here." But Gu Fei's chant was already in progress. 1,000 layers flame of the fire tree, rise. Interrupt, hurry, and interrupt. Countercurrent hurriedly shouted at the people near Gu Fei. But Gu Fei's chant was only 6 words and Countercurrent's reminder was only 5. There was no reason for him to reach first. The 1,000 layers flame of the fire tree had to bloom. Chapter 162. The players from singing to whine hurriedly dodged, but there were too many of them. Although there was an empty space, it was impossible to make space for the 1,000 layers flames in the blink of an eye. Even though Gu Fei's spell had given them plenty of time, most of the players ran away. There was always a small number of players left. As the flames rose, Gu Fei looked at his points and saw that they had increased by 6 points. The score of 29 to 46 had become 41 to 46, only 6 points away from the reversal. No one could stop this reversal. After Gu Fei finished chanting 1,000 layers flames, he immediately chanted Heavenly Fire Wheel beside the 1,000 layers flames. After 1,000 layers of flames bloomed, the fire wheel in the sky also ignited. Some of the players who were originally at this location scattered in all directions. Unfortunately, there were some who escaped from the direction of the fire tree's 1,000-layer flames. Adding up those who didn't escape in time, this heavenly flaming will gave more points than the previous one, 11 points. 52 to 46, the score had been reversed. From the moment Slender Waist Dancer appeared behind the hill and attracted the attention of the archer, everything happened in the blink of an eye. "I learned this move from you." Gu Fei smiled as he spoke to Upstream, who was gritting his teeth and gritting his teeth. This person was introduced to Gu Fei by the Han family young master, the guild leader of Singing to Wine. Although he couldn't recognize the person, the aqua-blue staff in his hand was quite eye-catching. Upstream clenched his teeth. Casting 2 AoE spells seemed simple, but apart from chanting, he also had to calculate the target's movement speed and predict the direction of the target's movement. This was the only way to ensure that the second attack wouldn't miss. However, there were many targets for Gu Fei to choose from, so he didn't have to spend so much effort to calculate. His 2 AoE spells seemed to be effective against the Singing to Wine formation. Ice Whirlwind. Spin. Countercurrent pointed his staff, and a whirlwind rose from the ground, spiraling towards Gu Fei. Still playing with me? Gu Fei laughed. Go chase after Slender Waist Dancer. Going against the current, he continued to grit his teeth. Someone had already gone over to the Slender Dancer, but he soon received a report. She was too fast, and there was no way to catch up. He knew that his side was likely to lose this battle. His heart was broken, and he only wanted to vent his anger on Gu Fei. Dual Flame Flash. Dodge. Gu Fei watched as the ice whirlwind floated in front of him. He did not dodge or slash. Instead, he raised his sword with both hands and swung it downwards. He shouted as he completed his chant. The Dark Knight Flowing Light Sword, which was surrounded by flames that looked like 2 dragons playing with a pearl, cut the ice whirlwind in half and disappeared instantly. Gu Fei waved his hand and said with a smile, "All right, stop fooling around." Upstream was greatly shocked. It wasn't surprising that the ice whirlwind couldn't withstand the physical attack and broke into pieces. Many powerful warriors could do the same. But although the magic damage of the shattered ice whirlwind would be sharply reduced, the additional freezing and slowing effect would be transmitted through contact. But right now, Gu Fei's movements were completely normal. Clearly, even the freezing effect had not been activated. There was only one explanation for this: Gu Fei's Dual Flame Flash was simply too powerful. It was so powerful that its burning effect suppressed the freezing effect of the ice tornado. There was actually someone who had trained the Dual Flame Flash to such a high level. What kind of mage was this? While thinking about this, he also paid attention to the sword in Gu Fei's hand. He used appraisal art on it and saw a series of question marks. Gu Fei strolled leisurely among the 600 people. With one hand on his head, he gazed into the distance like Wukong and let out a long sigh. I can't even see where the slim waist dance went. As he spoke, he took out an apple from his pocket and prepared to take a bite. Unexpectedly, the sound of wind whistled past his ears. Gu Fei hurriedly tilted his head to the back. With a loud bang, the apple in his hand was shot away by the arrow, and apple crumbs splattered all over Gu Fei's face. Gu Fei expressionlessly turned his head and saw a person holding a bow and arrow. His face was also a little surprised. "You saw through me." Gu Fei nodded. "But don't tell me you were aiming for the apple." The person was ashamed. "Fine, I admit that I'm already out of strength." Gu Fei spread his hands. "If you want to kill me, come." There was a large empty space around Gu Fei. Upstream waved his hand, and many archers and mages stepped forward. "Hey, don't be like this. Give me 2 melee fighters to play with." Gu Fei was depressed. Upstream ignored him. With a command, all the archers released homing arrows, and all the mages threw AoE spells at the small empty space. "Fireball, shoot!" Gu Fei fought back tenaciously, using the last bit of his mana to cast this lowly spell. As for the opponent's attack, there was no space for Gu Fei to dodge at all in this empty space. No matter how fast he was, it was useless. He finally turned into a white light and disappeared. The fireball he left behind floated towards the crowd, but the experts were all experienced. They knew that the fireball wouldn't do much damage, and they scattered it with a slap. "Hurry up. Find the slim waist dance quickly." Upstream waved his hand. After saying that, he looked around. The scenery was blank. Upstream felt that this map was unprecedentedly big, so big that it made him panic and want to vomit. Gu Fei experienced the world of darkness and light. When he opened his eyes, he was already in the teleportation circle outside the guild building. There were girls around him, and Gu Fei was wrapped in the flowers. He attracted the envious gazes of the surrounding male players. Look at him, he was teleported to the right place, right into the crowd of girls. How is it? How is it? The girls asked Gu Fei one after another. The players who died in battle and were teleported outside couldn't hear the system broadcast, so they didn't know the current score. The score has been reversed, Gu Fei said. The girls cheered. Xiao Wu, you can do it. The guild cheered. Gu Fei smiled faintly and quietly dodged. Where are you going? A few noticed that Gu Fei was leaving and asked behind him. I'm going first. See you tomorrow. Gu Fei called out, squeezed out of the crowd, and went straight to Little Ray's bar. Is Gongzi here? Gu Fei asked Little Ray in a low voice after entering the bar. Little Ray pointed to the number 2 private room. Gu Fei snickered, walked to the private room, opened the curtain and went in, and then was stunned. Han family young master was in the private room, but Coward's savior was also there. The two drank and chatted merrily, and Coward's savior was trying to recommend a piece of barbecue to Han family young master. This piece is the most exquisite. Just by barbecuing this piece of meat, my proficiency has increased by 3 points. Try it. Coward's savior introduced. After Gu Fei entered the door, the two turned around together. Coward's savior hurriedly threw off the meat and stood up to greet Gu Fei. Han family young master looked at him with a faint smile. Hi. Gu Fei also squeezed a smile. You guys are pretty good. Pretty good. What else do you think? Han family young master sneered, and then raised his glass to invite Coward's savior to drink with him. Coward's savior drank his glass to his heart's content, patted the seat, and shouted to Gu Fei, Sit, brother Zoe. I'm waiting for the person you're talking about. Since you're here, let's watch the show later. Gu Fei firmly forbade the savior of the coward from calling him master, but this guy was unrelenting and insisted on using a respectful title for Gu Fei. In the end, just like Fireball, he used this title. Gu Fei asked about his age, and he was indeed older than Coward's savior, so he deserved this title. Alright. Gu Fei stopped Coward's savior from continuing. Coward. You go ahead with your business, there's no need for it. Ah. Nothing, go ahead with your business. Gu Fei patted him. Oh. Coward's savior and Han family young master said goodbye, and were ready to leave. He even turned around, Don't call me coward, call me Coward's savior. With martial arts, there are no cowards. Got it, coward. Gu Fei said. Coward's savior nodded his head in satisfaction, and left. He. Gu Fei looked at Han family young master, and smiled honestly. A man who looks like a woman, beat him up huh? Han family young master said. No, it's a misunderstanding. Gu Fei said. Really? What kind of misunderstanding? The Han family's young master asked aggressively. It was obvious that Han family young master already knew very well, and no one knew how he managed to fool Coward's savior. Since things had come to this, Gu Fei became a rascal, and simply slapped the table. Don't be arrogant. You think no one will beat you up after I leave? I'm still sitting here. At most, I'll beat you up myself. Did the competition go well? Not bad. This was how smart people talked. They changed the topic in a straightforward and efficient manner, without the slightest hesitation. That legendary undefeatable tactic of yours doesn't seem like much. Gu Fei said. The score was reversed. Han family young master asked. Gu Fei nodded his head. Oh, how did you do it? Han family young master asked. Gu Fei explained the process. The two of them threw themselves, and then went through the formation. They didn't die. You? Han family young master didn't dare to believe it. I did the math. Gu Fei said. The two of them took off all of their damage-increasing equipment, and the two of them threw themselves at me could only take away half of my HP. Then, they borrowed a set of magic resistance equipment from Slender Waist Dancer, and their single target fire resistance is 73%. I think it's about enough to go through the formation, 73%. That perverted woman. Han family young master mumbled. Heh. Gu Fei said. You can only think of such a violent method. Han family young master said. What do you have in mind? Gu Fei asked. Doesn't she have a teleportation scroll? Can't she just sneak in and get the coordinates? Han family young master said. Also, they're all gathered there waiting for you to reverse the score. Why did you make a move so early? Wouldn't it be better to go at the end? If they take care of Slender Waist Dancer now, wouldn't your efforts be in vain? Han family young master said as he looked at the time. There's still half an hour before the competition ends. Gu Fei said. TSK TSK TSK. Han family young master shook his head. Didn't you say your strategy is flawless? Gu Fei said. I said from the very beginning that I prioritize the mercenary group. What does this have to do with the mercenary group? If you can win, this will be a huge step for our mercenary group. Han family young master said. Chapter 163. Pfft. Gu Fei didn't think much of it. Don't make it sound like you did it on purpose. If it wasn't for Slender Waist Dance's teleportation scroll, we would have died under your magic circle. Oh, is there such a thing? The young master of the Han family shook off his usual demeanor that made people want to beat him up and said slowly. If Gu Fei wasn't a weak mage, the wine glass in his hand would have shattered. Work hard. Control. Gu Fei reminded himself of Stephen Chow's fighting spirit when he faced the raging sea in The King of Comedy. No matter what, the current situation isn't bad. Han family young master looked at the time. Can Slender Waist Dance hold on by herself? No problem. Gu Fei nodded. Do you think we didn't think about the time you mentioned? With Slender Waist Dance's ability, she can hold on for longer. Ability? Teleportation scrolls count as ability. Gu Fei didn't say anything at first. After a moment of silence, he said, it's boring to sit and wait for time. If it was Yutian or Wu Shang, they wouldn't feel bored. Han family young master said. Gu Fei thought for a moment and nodded. I agree. After a moment of silence, Gu Fei finally couldn't help but ask, did you really plan to play Singing to Wine? Not at first, but then I did. Han family young master said. Why not at first? Gu Fei asked. In your guild, other than you and Slender Waist Dance, no one else mattered. Although you two were fast, there were many people in Singing to Wine. Also, because of the large number of people, the match would last for a long time. There was enough time to squeeze the space in the map so you two couldn't escape. Han family young master said, but after seeing Slender Waist Dance's teleportation scroll, I changed my mind and decided to help you win. Oh. So I exaggerated your and Slender Waist Dance's ability and suggested the guild to participate in this safe defense. I was going to tell you the solution in the last 10 minutes. But you are ruthless enough to settle it with violence half an hour in advance. The Han family young master was expressionless. Acting on your own again. If we can't hold on for the last 10 minutes, wouldn't your plan be in vain? Gu Fei said. You didn't make it to the last 10 minutes. I'm the one to blame. Han family young master asked. Gu Fei choked. Why didn't you tell me in advance? Didn't I tell you? The defense was perfect, and even I couldn't find a way to break it. Wasn't this telling him, just squat to the side and don't try anything? Because this is the perfect plan that I designed. Han family young master said. I'm sorry. From some of your narcissistic words, it's really hard for me to dig out deeper meaning. Gu Fei said. Han family young master shook his head. Look at the stupid method you used at the end. The fact that it succeeded only means that your luck isn't bad. Gu Fei could only helplessly smile bitterly. The two of them sat quietly in the private room, waiting for the match to end. Half an hour later, Gu Fei's message started to flash. He opened it and saw Slender Waist dance. Where are you? Where are you? We won. Waha, I'm too strong. Gu Fei smiled and replied, handsome. Young Master Han frowned and widened his eyes. He was clearly browsing through the news as well. After a while, he waved his hand and said, so noisy. No one caused trouble for you? Gu Fei asked while drinking. How he wished that someone would rush in and beat up Han family young master. Although he had the ability to do so, he couldn't bring himself to do it since they were so close. Han family young master shook his head. I don't know. He had already blocked the guild channel. Not long after, there was a commotion outside the private room. A female voice could be heard. Today's drinks are all on me. Cheers rang out. Gu Fei and Han family young master looked at each other. Little Ray. The two of them shouted. Little Ray hurriedly appeared in front of the two of them. Is there someone outside who wants to treat us? Han family young master asked. Little Ray nodded. Give me 2 bottles of the most expensive wine. Han family young master said. Xiaolei smiled faintly and left. I've drunk that wine before. It's really good. Gu Fei was a little excited. Han family young master's face turned cold. Do you need me to remind you how you got it? Gu Fei immediately stopped talking. Little Ray quickly brought the wine in. Because someone was treating, everyone in the pub started to drink to their heart's content. Little Ray was very busy at this time. He didn't even have time to say a few words. He threw the wine down and ran away. Ah! Looking at the bottle of wine, Han family young master's eyes showed a rare glint of joy. He quickly poured himself a cup. Although Gu Fei wasn't a good drinker, the fact that he dared to quote a price of 120 gold per bottle in the game meant that it was indeed a rare wine. Gu Fei didn't want to waste such a precious gift, so he poured himself a full cup. The people who rushed into the private room were the girls from Reborn Amethyst. They couldn't believe that they defeated the second largest guild in Cloud City, singing for wine. They were so excited that they abandoned their usual reserved attitude and cheered outside. The other customers in the pub asked around curiously. When they heard the result, they were naturally shocked. Slender Waist Dance, who had dealt with 600 people alone in the last half an hour, could be said to have made a great contribution. She was now describing how she avoided the pursuit of 600 people. Han family young master listened to her explanation and said to Gu Fei, I understand why you didn't choose to attack at the last moment. You intentionally left half an hour for Slender Waist Dance to show off and gave her the most credit, right? Gu Fei smiled and raised his cup. Let's drink, let's drink. Han family young master drank it in one gulp and sighed. This wine doesn't feel like I'm taking advantage of her at all. It's what I should do. Gu Fei smiled. At this time, the noise outside suddenly quieted down. In an instant, there was silence. After a moment, Gu Fei heard July's voice. So it's singing for wine. What's the matter? Looking for trouble? Gu Fei frowned and reached into his pocket to grab the hilt of his sword. Don't be nervous. Han family young master smiled. Against the Current isn't that kind of person. Against the Current replied, where's the mage from your guild? I'm quite interested in him and would like to get to know him. He's not here. July replied. Against the Current had eyes too. He looked around the pub and didn't see Gu Fei. Can you tell me how to contact him? I'll tell him and let him decide for himself. July replied. Thank you. Upstream replied and left with the people who were drinking and singing. The girls let out a sigh of relief. They all thought that Singing for Wine had lost and wanted to get back his pride. From what Singing for Wine sounds like, it seems like he's trying to poach someone. The girls started whispering. They all knew how strong Gu Fei was after a few guild wars. An expert like this was definitely someone that the big guilds would fight to recruit. He was different from Slender Waist Dance. Although Slender Waist Dance was also a top-notch expert, her mentality was the same as the other girls. She just wanted to have fun, and did not have any arrogance or desire to fight for hegemony. That was why she didn't feel that there was anything wrong with Slender Waist Dance's small guild, and the mercenary group she owned was also disbanded just like that. As for Gu Fei, no one knew what he was thinking. The girls weren't familiar with him. Plus, it was a misunderstanding that he joined the guild and he would leave sooner or later. The girls didn't have a deep relationship with Gu Fei and didn't care if he was an expert or a noob. However, after a long time, the girls were used to having him in the guild. Now that this habit was about to change, they felt a little disappointed. The atmosphere in the tavern suddenly became less cheerful. Han family young master mocked, "I didn't know that you have a place in these girls' hearts." Gu Fei smiled and didn't say anything. It wasn't a bad thing to have a place in other people's hearts. The third round of the tournament was over. Cloud City once again appeared on the headlines. The content was about the reborn Amethyst defeating Singing for Wine. Unlike the Sheep Cloud mercenary group, the news this time wasn't released by one of the participants. The poster claimed that he had conducted in-depth interviews with both participants, but the post barely mentioned the existence of the mage, Gu Fei. The post emphasized the strength of Slender Waist Dance, one of the 5 roaches, and the existence of teleportation scrolls. The news didn't affect the players outside of Cloud City, but it caused another storm in Cloud City. First, it was the Sheep Cloud mercenary group with 70 players. Now, it was Singing for Wine with 700 players. This tactic of buying time after self-destructing was too terrifying. All the major guilds and mercenary groups were trying to find a way to counter this tactic. As expected of Singing for Wine. This is much better than when we defeated Yunmu. Han family young master nodded his head in satisfaction. It's Muyun, brother, you said. Why bring it up? It's all in the past. I'm looking forward to seeing what tactic they'll use against our mercenary group today. Han family young master laughed coldly. They each took the information that brother Yu had prepared for today's opponent. Gu Fei glanced over it and laughed, today's opponent definitely won't be affected by your stupid strategy. Oh. Someone can see through my intentions. Han family young master hurriedly grabbed the information that brother Yu had prepared. Child Elite Group's opponent in the 4th round, Amethyst Mercenary Group, Level 1 Mercenary Group, 20 members. Apart from Slender Waist Dance who was level 41, no one else was level 40 or above. Chapter 164. The 4 guild leaders had worried looks on their faces. Courtney was right in front of them. The 4 of them sent their best players to pester her, but they couldn't find any clues. They didn't know where Qianli went. Out of the 4, Unchung Mutsu was the first to want to kill her. He wanted to kill Courtney to see if there were any clues. I don't think that's a good idea. Against the Current shook his head. She's an NPC that has nothing to do with clues. Do you usually kill NPCs in the city just to find out if there's a quest? I think you guys know the consequences of attacking these civilian NPCs, right? Attacking an NPC civilian would result in a merciless attack from the system guards, even if it was an accidental injury. In this regard, the system was clearly biased. It only cared about the NPC race and didn't care about the players at all. Desperate times call for desperate measures. I don't believe that if we attack her now, the guards will come to her rescue. Unchung Mutsu said. I just want you to know that attacking a system NPC for no reason will result in a severe punishment. Right now, there might not be any guards coming to attack, but will they deduct your points? Against the Current said. Unchung Mutsu was startled and suddenly laughed. If they really deduct my points, I don't think you'll stop me, right? Against the Current was also startled. In all honesty, at this moment, he didn't have any evil intentions. He was just purely analyzing and thinking that killing Courtney wasn't a good idea. But obviously, his character wasn't like this. At this critical moment, Unchung Mutsu didn't hesitate to analyze him from a dark angle. It's not a bad idea to deduct your points. It's best if you die 2 more times. If you want to kill me, then go ahead and kill me. Against the Current wasn't in a good mood and didn't argue. What about the 2 of you? Unchung Mutsu looked at Unsworn's sword and black index finger. As the 2 were hesitating, they suddenly received a message in the guild channel. Guild leader, someone wants to see you. Who? All 4 asked. I don't know, but he said he knows where Qianli and the others are. Ah. The 4 of them were startled. They quickly asked for directions and ran together in unison. The 4 guild leaders were afraid of dying because of the honor kill, so they didn't want to get close to anyone. The players around them were also on guard, not allowing any strangers to get close to them. When this extremely tempting piece of news appeared, the 4 of them didn't dare to be negligent. They went over to look for people while calling for the defense team. The newcomer appeared before the 4 of them. The moment Sworn Sword saw him, he felt a little strange. You look familiar. I think I've seen you before. The newcomer sighed. How do you know where the drunk Qianli is? Because I know the follow-up to their mission. What familiar lines? The 4 of them were startled. Sword Without Oath immediately remembered. It's you. Aren't you the guy who's with Hong Chenxiao? The other 3 also let out an oh. They also remembered that Hong Chenxiao wasn't alone. He had a companion with him. Damn, you keep saying this. Do you think we're stupid? Unchung Mutsu was furious. He suddenly swung his sword. Water-breaking arrow turned around and quickly raised his arm. The crossbow in his hand was already aimed at Unchung Mutsu's temple. He didn't attack. Even if he did, it wouldn't be a big deal to a warrior. However, this action showed his superb PvP skills. He didn't attack, which meant that he didn't have any ill intentions. You guys really have some misunderstandings. Broken Arrow said helplessly. The 4 guild leaders didn't say anything. Water-breaking Arrow had already put away his crossbow. Right now, you guys can't find Qianli at all. You can't disrupt his mission at all. You'll even suspect that I'm a spy sent by Qianli to purposely mislead you. Do you have a direction now? Unchung Mutsu was now thinking in reverse. Hearing Water-breaking Arrow's words, he laughed. If that's the case, then I have more confidence to touch this NPC. When the other 3 heard this, they also had a thought. Maybe it was because this NPC had an important plot. Qianli was worried that they would kill him, so he specifically found this guy to trick. This excuse almost made them fall for it again. Hong Chenxiao also told me to remind you guys. Don't ever touch Courtney again. Otherwise, you'll see a completely unbeatable berserk boss. Water-breaking Arrow said. Ha 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 ha, then I'll go and see. Unchung Mutsu laughed and immediately gathered the team in the guild channel. They had seen Courtney's combat ability. She was indeed very strong. However, with the strength of 1,000 guild, they could still take her down. Now, she didn't have the uncontrollable hatred that she had when she was chasing Qianli. Perfect. If you die, at least the other 3 guild leaders will believe what I said. Water-breaking Arrow said. The other 3 were also ready to make a move. Hearing this, they felt that it wasn't a bad thing to continue watching. Unchung Mutsu laughed coldly. He naturally had his own plans. He just wanted to go up and attack. If this NPC was really as unbeatable as this guy said, then he could just retreat. How much loss would he suffer then? Team 1, 12:00, 1 o'clock, 3:00, 4 o'clock, 5:00, 6 o'clock, 7:00, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and 10 o'clock. Everyone, get to your positions. Mudo of the Cloud ordered. The Sheep Cloud Guild split into 10 teams and prepared to attack. After all, Courtney wasn't a professional wild boss. She wouldn't actively attack people. She could be considered a passive monster. Attack! Under Unchung Mutsu's command, the warriors in 10 directions surrounded her. A passive monster that wouldn't actively attack was very beneficial for the players to set up their formation. 5 swords, 5 shields, 10 warriors gathered around Courtney almost at the same time. Attack, instant kill. Everything happened so quickly and cleanly. There was no hesitation at all. When the 10 people attacked, they died. This wasn't all. In the white light of the 10 people, Courtney's arrows were still flying. 10 arrows, instant kill another 10 people. The players were shocked. Shooting through people was called penetrating attack in the game. It was a common attribute on archers' crossbows. Usually, there was a chance to trigger it. The secondary damage after penetrating was usually greatly reduced. Courtney's 10 arrows all penetrated. Was the damage reduced? No one knew. No one knew what her original damage was. They only knew that when her arrows came out, they were instant kills. Including the 5 Constitution-type heavy warriors, they were also instant kills. This attack was indeed much stronger than the last time she had used Burst Run. The players surrounding her didn't dare to move. Instant kill damage was something that the players couldn't deal with at all. Did they rely on sacrifices? If they could revive on the spot, they could try, but here, the players didn't dare to move, but Courtney didn't stop. She drew her bow and shot again. This time, the players saw clearly that there weren't just 10 arrows, and the attack wasn't in a fan shape, but a circle. Courtney turned her body when she shot the arrows, and the arrows shot out in a 360-degree circle. The arrows were very fast. The players couldn't dodge them at all. Those who were hit were instantly killed. Then, the penetrating attack, another round of death. The arrows were still shooting. Courtney's face was filled with anger, determination, and sadness. She wouldn't allow anyone to break her protection of Angus. The expressions of the 3 guild leaders of Unsworn Sword all changed. Their previous eagerness to try had vanished. They were all ordering the guild players to retreat. Courtney's arrows could kill anyone. There was no immunity to damage in the parallel world. Countless bystanders who died unjustly could testify. Unchung Mutsu was the one who wanted to run the most. Formation, recovery, cover, they didn't care anymore. There was only one thing in his mind, run. Run as many as you can. Tragedy always belonged to the short-legged. Courtney didn't chase after them. She just shot arrows from where she stood. Not only was her attack high, but her range was also very long. The players didn't know how far they had to run to stop her attacks. They could only run for their lives. When Courtney stopped, there was no one within a 100-meter radius. Even the 3 big guilds were accidentally attacked when they retreated, let alone the Herding Clouds Guild. Herding Clouds Guild. Almost all the people who escaped were rogues and archers. Courtney's attack was 360-degree. She shot 20 arrows at a time, and each arrow killed 2 people. 10 attacks killed 400 people. The Herding Clouds Guild tried their best to run away. In the end, only 274 people survived, including Unchung Mutsu himself. When Courtney's arrows flew over, he was no different from a level 1 newbie. He died instantly. The Herding Clouds Guild had set the record for the largest guild annihilation in Cloud City. Unchung Mutsu was filled with regret. He only had 2 more chances to die. That was why he, who was always at the front in battle, didn't walk at the front for the first time. He shrunk into the team and prepared to coldly give orders. At the same time, if Courtney was really unbeatable, he could retreat calmly. He didn't know Courtney would be this sick. Unchung Mutsu cried. Now you 3 should believe what I said, right? Water-breaking Arrow said to Unsworn Sword and the other 2. The 3 of them looked at each other. Is it really a misunderstanding? Against the Current said. Hengchen Yixiao is in the 17th server now, right? Unsworn Sword asked. Yes, he can't contact you anymore, Water-Breaking Arrow said. Tell me what we should do next, Black Index Finger said. The forest in the north. Qianli got drunk and they need to go there to get some necessities, Water-Breaking Arrow said. What are you waiting for? Go after them. The 4 guilds ordered. With their speed, it's going to be hard to catch up to them, Water-Breaking Arrow said. Then what do we do? We can only go to the next location of their mission in advance, Water-Breaking Arrow said. Oh. Which direction? The 3 guild masters asked. Follow me. Water-Breaking Arrow led the way. The 3 looked at where he was going and were depressed. Cloud Suburb Lake again. Water-Breaking Arrow nodded. The 3 sighed. They thought that Cloud Suburb Lake was a good place for an ambush, but now it seemed that Qianli could perform exceptionally well when he got drunk. Let's hurry. Water-Breaking Arrow said. Let's go. The 3 guild masters led the way. What's the situation now? Wait for me. Uncheng Mutsu sent a message in pain. Brother Yunzhong, just one more time. You should just stay at the revival point and daydream. The 3 guild masters comforted him. Don't even think about leaving me behind. Uncheng Mutsu was filled with grief and indignation. What are you saying? We're just thinking about your safety, Brother Yunzhong. The 3 guild masters expressed. It would have been better if they didn't say this, but once they did, Uncheng Mutsu was terrified again. Just one more time. Maybe these 3 guys would really take the chance to kill him. He was already in a difficult situation, what should he do? At the north end of Cloud Suburb Lake, Shi Xiaotian and the other 2 quickly circled around the lake and arrived there. The forest didn't look that big. Courtney said that the things were in her house, so everyone thought that she didn't live in a tree hole. There should be a small house in the forest, so it would be an easy target. After entering the forest, Shi Xiaotian suggested to split up. Slim Waist Dance nodded and walked to the right. Yutian Shinming was extremely calm and walked to the left. With a beauty in front of him, Yutian Shinming decided that even if he got lost, he wouldn't show any fear. Why are you running around? Follow me. In the end, Shi Xiaotian dragged him back. Yutian Shinming naively thought that there would be people who didn't know about his bad habit. It was really a fantasy. Embarrassed, Yutian Shinming followed Shi Xiaotian and indeed found a small house in the forest. Yutian Shinming excitedly wanted to barge in, but suddenly stopped in front of the door. He took 2 steps back and whispered to Shi Xiaotian, "There's movement inside." What movement? Shi Xiaotian was informing Slim Waist Dance of her location. There seems to be someone inside, Yutian Shinming said. It can't be. Shi Xiaotian was stunned. Yutian Shinming walked around the small house. It was really too small. There were no windows on the walls, but there was a skylight on the roof. Is there going to be a fight? Yutian Shinming muttered. This was the reason why he didn't dare to rashly enter the house. Wait for little spy, come here, Shi Xiaotian said. The forest wasn't big, and Slim Waist Dance didn't run too far. After receiving Shi Xiaotian's message, she arrived not long after. Hearing that there was someone in the house, she didn't care and stepped forward. Look at how scared you guys are. I'll go take a look. Little spy, don't. Shi Xiaotian hurriedly stopped her. There's someone in the enemy's formation who is completely familiar with the mission. Maybe he's prepared for this step in advance and sent someone over to set a trap. Shi Xiaotian said while looking around vigilantly. Yutian Shinming felt that it was very reasonable. He knocked his bow and arrow and took aim. That bastard Qianli, why hasn't he come yet? Slim Waist Dance sent a message to Gu Fei. Creak. The door opened. Yutian Shinming didn't even think and released an arrow. Damn. With one sentence, a figure swayed inside the door. The voice seemed very familiar. Following that, Gu Fei walked out with a dark face and glared at Yutian Shinming. What are you doing? The three of them were dumbfounded. Yutian Shinming was surprised. How did you get here first? Oh, so the teleportation scroll is closer to here. Gu Fei said. The three of their faces immediately darkened. Why didn't you let us use the teleportation scroll just now? Slim Waist Dance was angry, although she didn't think of it at the time. Oh, didn't you want to swim over? I thought it was your hobby. Gu Fei said. Hobby my ass. Slim Waist Dance scolded. Did you find it? Shi Xiaotian didn't argue with this question. Found it. Gu Fei took it out for them to see. It was a scroll. Magic tools always seem to be scrolls. What scroll is it? The three asked. Magic bubble. It can create a spherical magic barrier on the surface of an object after use. Gu Fei said. What do you mean? You're asking me? Gu Fei was surprised. He was waiting for an explanation. Only one. The three asked Gu Fei. There are three. Gu Fei took out two more scrolls. I want one. Slim Waist Dance pounced. Gu Fei dodged and kicked her into the house. To be safe, should we go back and ask Courtney how to use it? Shi Xiaotian said. Gu Fei nodded. Ask her. Don't waste it by yourself. But the people from the four major guilds are still there. Yutian Shinming said. Let's sneak back and see. Gu Fei said as he dodged the attacks of Slim Waist Dance who came out of the house. To be safe, use the teleportation scroll. They shouldn't be able to find that route. Shi Xiaotian suggested. Gu Fei nodded and shook a scroll. The four of them flew out and ran in Courtney's direction. They scouted from the hillside and didn't see anything unusual around Courtney. Who would have thought that 800 players were killed within 100 meters of her? The four of them saw that there was no movement and immediately went forward. Gu Fei went straight to the point. He took out the magic bubble scroll and asked Courtney how to use it. Courtney was also straightforward. She took one and demonstrated it to Gu Fei's head. With a shake of the scroll, it quickly turned into countless bubbles, which gathered tightly around Gu Fei's head. Gu Fei, with such a huge bubble on his head, was very confused. The other three laughed so hard that they wanted to roll on the ground a few times to satisfy their craving. That's it. The magic bubble will wrap around your head and provide oxygen for your breathing. One scroll can last about 15 minutes. Courtney said. At this time, the small bubbles on Gu Fei's head were constantly merging with each other and soon they would all merge into one big bubble. Gu Fei's head could be clearly seen inside, but the big bubble on his head was even more hilarious. The three of them were about to die from laughter. If I use two together, will the effect stack? Shi Xiaotian laughed wildly and didn't forget to ask about serious matters. Yes. Courtney nodded. 15 minutes. I don't know if it's enough to finish what we have to do underwater. Just to be safe, one person should go. 2 scrolls can guarantee at least half an hour. Shi Xiaotian said. If I knew it was so easy, I wouldn't have asked her. I wasted one. Gu Fei was heartbroken. Before we get to the mission location, will the one on your head still be there? Shi Xiaotian asked. No. Gu Fei said. That's a pity. Shi Xiaotian expressed his regret. Hey, you two, are you done laughing? Gu Fei glared at the other two. In the reeds facing Courtney, there were guild members lying on the ground. They quickly reported to the guild leader, 1,000 miles drunk has appeared. He's in contact with Courtney. Damn. The 3 guild leaders who listened to Water-Breaking Arrow's arrangements were furious and stared at Water-Breaking Arrow. Chapter 165. The 3 of them turned around to look at Gu Fei. Behind Gu Fei, Yutian Shinming and Unscathed in Battle were also walking over listlessly. Can you do it? Brother Yu asked Gu Fei. It's easy. We're from the same guild. Hee hee. Gu Fei laughed, asked Gongzi how he died. The Han family's young master rolled his eyes gloomily. A bunch of girls, each and every one of them is as pretty as a flower. Brother Yu said. Gu Fei coughed. Gongzi doesn't lose to them in this aspect either. Brother Yu and the sword ghost were stunned. They glanced at the Han family's young master again before coming back to their senses. They ducked to the side and sniggered. Han family young master had already clenched his fist. Gu Fei quickly stopped the situation from escalating. He waved the sword in his hand and shouted, "Let's go! Let's go!" After shouting, he used his advantage in speed to temporarily put some distance between him and Han family young master. Gu Fei climbed up the hill first and looked into the distance. There were a total of 26 players participating in the battle. The map wasn't that big, so they quickly found the girls. The other 5 also arrived and looked in the direction of the battle. The girls were gathered in a group and didn't move for a long time. It was completely different from the past when they would scatter in all directions the moment they entered the map. What's going on? Aren't they coming over? What are they doing there? Brother Yu asked. They're chatting. Gu Fei said gloomily. How did you know? Brother Yu asked. My message notifications are about to explode. Gu Fei sighed. Gu Fei ignored the guild channel and tried his best to reply to the private messages. 20 opponents. This was only in comparison to the competition. Gu Fei had to deal with almost all of the Rebirth Amethyst's opponents in the private chat. In this respect, the difference in skill between Gu Fei and the girls was as big as the gap between him and the girls when they were fighting. Moreover, he had to face nearly 50 enemies. It was simply too crazy. In an instant, Unscathed in Battle seemed to have aged 10 years. Yutian Shinming was also mumbling to himself, "Grapes, my grapes." Gu Fei was already busy sending messages, but there were still 2 people on the other side who were dying. He had no choice but to comfort them again. "Hey, you two, is it that serious?" "They're just curious." Every relationship is usually just a little bit of curiosity at the beginning, Zhang Wushang said in a meaningful tone. And their curiosity towards you is definitely not the slightest bit. Imperial Sky Divine Ming said. We're done for. Unscathed in Battle and Yutian Shinming looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Gu Fei was speechless. Can we still fight? Han family young master roared. Fight, fight. Let me put an end to this with my own hands. Yutian Shinming caressed his beloved bow. Unscathed in Battle patted him. This world is lonely. Fortunately, you and I have brothers to keep each other company. Yutian Shinming was silent for a moment before saying, let's not talk about that. To be honest, we don't have anything in common. There's at least a generation gap. It's not your fault, it's the fault of age, the fault of time. Unscathed in Battle grabbed Yutian Shinming and threw him down the hill. The other 3 sighed in relief. The world is finally at peace. Come down. I want to fight you to the death. Yutian Shinming tumbled down the hill. His face was covered in dirt. Why else would they say that friends are scarier than enemies? When friends came up and patted their shoulders to show intimacy, no one would think of guarding against it. Even Gu Fei fell into Unscathed in Battle's trap, let alone Yutian Shinming. Just like that, the 2 of them quarreled from the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill. On the other side, Gu Fei continued to send messages like crazy. Han family young master, brother Yu, and sword demon looked at each other and sighed, so it's still up to the 3 of us. Let's chat a little longer to attract their attention. After Han family young master told Gu Fei, the 3 of them started to walk down the hill towards the place where the girls were born. Hey, wait for me. Gu Fei sent a message as he chased after them. Unscathed in Battle also went down the hill. He and Yutian Shinming quarreled as they went on their way. However, in the eyes of Han family young master and the others, the three of them were like walking corpses. We'll talk later. We'll talk later. We'll talk later. Gu Fei sent these 3 words more than 100 times in a row. Finally, the girls stopped asking questions. Gu Fei let out a long sigh and wiped his sweat. It's finally done. On the other side, Yutian Shinming, and unscathed in battle, also started to bemoan the unfairness of fate. In the blink of an eye, they started to appreciate each other and were spitting out sour words. Gu Fei had just come back to his senses. After hearing 2 sentences, he couldn't take it anymore. He then looked for Han family young master and the other 2, but he didn't know where they were. He sent a message to ask about them and continued to walk forward. He had finished chatting with the girls. It was probably time to march forward. With their way of marching from all over the mountains and plains, area of effect spells were basically useless. If he went over and slashed one by one, Slender Waist Dance would definitely jump out and stop him. With this girl pestering him, it was hard to say what would happen if the others were to sneak around. It seemed like he had to get rid of Slender Waist Dance first. As Gu Fei was pondering, he saw a trench in front of him. Brother Yu was squatting in the trench, looking out from time to time. He looked like he had the potential to join the flowers and live forever. Brother Yu. Gu Fei called him. Brother Yu turned around and saw him. He smiled. Done? Gu Fei felt awkward. He jumped into the trench to get closer to Brother Yu. He asked, "What are you doing here? Where are Sword Demon and Han family young master? They're also looking for a place to ambush." Brother Yu said. Where? Gu Fei poked his head out of the trench and looked around. Brother Yu also poked his head out and pointed at a small hill nearby. Gongzi is there. Sword Demon doesn't know. How are we going to fight? Gu Fei asked. They're moving in quite a mess. We'll wait for those who are alone to deal with them one by one. Brother Yu said. Gu Fei smiled. They've always been like that. Ah! Someone's coming. Brother Yu's eyes were sharp. After shouting in a low voice, he quickly pulled Gu Fei back into the trench. However, the eyes of the person on the other side were not bad either. At this time, a scream pierced through the clouds, followed by a shout, "There are 2 heads on the ground over there." Gu Fei and Brother Yu looked at each other in the trench. There's something like that. Gu Fei exclaimed. Hurry up and move. They'll definitely be here soon. Brother Yu said. Good timing. Gu Fei pulled out his sword. Oh. Brother Yu nodded his head and pulled out his staff. He was about to cast when he paused and asked Gu Fei, "What buffs should I give you?" Speed. Gu Fei said. I don't have that right now. Brother Yu replied. Then what are they? Life, strength, endurance, intelligence, stamina. What's endurance? Gu Fei asked. His character didn't have this item in their stats. It's defense. Stamina is spirit. It's magic resist. Oh, you can't add them all? Gu Fei asked. He had experienced a cleric's heal before, but he had never experienced a knight's blessing. No. Brother Yu replied. Then add. Fuck, run. Gu Fei was halfway through his sentence when he suddenly felt a flash above his head. Clearly, there was a mage attacking this area. If he wanted to get out of the ditch, he would need to climb up. Gu Fei and Brother Yu dodged to the left and right, bending their backs to dodge to the sides. Gu Fei was confident in his speed, but he was worried about Brother Yu. As he ran, he looked back. Sure enough, he only dodged when there was a flash above his head. Brother Yu's speed wasn't enough. In the end, he couldn't escape the range of the heavenly flame wheel and was swept away. However, it was just a heavenly flame wheel. It wasn't enough to instantly kill him. Gu Fei let out a sigh of relief when he suddenly felt his body heat up. With a bang, sparks flew everywhere. He had been hit by the heavenly flame wheel. Gu Fei was depressed. He straightened his body and stuck his head out. He shouted towards the outside, "Who threw that? Can't you throw it more accurately?" Based on Gu Fei's understanding of the girls, he didn't think that this was some kind of cooperation. Someone had thrown it in the wrong direction, and it landed on Gu Fei's head. As expected, Ice Glaze outside the ditch said with a red face, "Ah, I'm sorry, Xiao Bing. I remember that you're quite skilled," Gu Fei said as he climbed out of the ditch. There were 4 girls standing outside the ditch. 2 mages, 1 priest, and 1 warrior. Normally, a mage, priest, and warrior would have similar movement speed, so the 4 of them ended up together. This was the unique scattered sand style of reborn amethyst. Gu Fei was reduced to fighting alone in this kind of automatic distribution, and so was Slim Waist Dance. Their movement speed was the highest in reborn amethyst. Ugh! Gu Fei didn't know what to say next. If it was any other time, he wouldn't even need to say anything. But now that they knew each other, it seemed like he needed to explain something. Gu Fei quickly realized that Brother Yu's worries were necessary. It was indeed difficult to make a move. It was also inappropriate for him to use the Han family young master as an example. The Han family young master was a person who deserved to be beaten up. He had no qualms dealing with him. But when it came to the girls, Gu Fei realized that he needed to be mentally prepared. Unexpectedly, the ladies reacted even faster than Gu Fei in this awkward situation. The warrior suddenly came back to his senses and shouted, "Ah, Qian Li is an enemy now. Attack quickly." "Oh yeah." The girls snapped out of their daze. "Fire will from the heavens." The 2 mages chanted together. Gu Fei didn't move. The girls' spell casting was too mysterious. Gu Fei was afraid that he would stand under the fire wheel if he moved, so it was better to wait for the wheel to come out. Flames flashed in the sky. Gu Fei looked up and saw that the 2 wheels were on target. He then calmly dodged and swung his sword. "Fireball, shoot!" Chapter 166. A fireball ignited on the sword blade, and the tip of the sword shot out, heading straight for the 4 girls. "Ah! Dodge!" The girls panicked. In fact, with the current standards of the players, a lowly spell like Fireball was basically nothing to them. They could casually grab something in their hands and knock it away. Even if it hit their body, it wouldn't be a big deal. But Gu Fei's spell was as terrifying as a beast in the eyes of the girls. Seeing the fireball coming, they scattered. Fireball had a tracking function, but Gu Fei's fireball didn't chase after any of the 4. It just floated away. Gu Fei practiced fireball as a hidden weapon. He always threw it according to his estimation and didn't rely on the system to help him. "Fireball, shoot!" Ice Glaze and the other mage girl used the same move to counterattack Gu Fei. Gu Fei didn't panic. With a flick of his sword, he deflected the 2 fireballs with a whoosh whoosh. Yeah. The warrior girl lowered her head and charged over. Gu Fei quickly dodged to the side and slashed down with his sword. Double flame flash, dodge. The blade of the sword drew a beautiful arc with sparks, but in the end, it slashed empty air. The warrior girl stood beside the sword and said in a daze, "Aya, is the distance not enough?" Gu Fei fainted. The warrior girl had miscalculated the distance of charge. From her position, she couldn't reach Gu Fei at all. Gu Fei dodged to the side and launched an attack at his original position. How could he have known that the skill would end before it could even reach him? Gu Fei's sword also dodged to the side. "I'll do it again." The girl ran back. Gu Fei's hand was trembling. He wanted to follow up with another attack, but after hearing this, he watched as she returned to her original position. She bent down, lowered her head, and raised her sword. The girl got into position. "Wait, the cooldown is about to be over." The other 3 nodded confidently to her. Tears streamed down Gu Fei's face. Was this a PK or a teaching battle? Ah, I'm coming. The warrior girl's cooldown was over and she rushed forward with a shout. Gu Fei was afraid that she wouldn't be able to reach him and waste his time, so he took a step forward and shouted, "Dual Flame Flash, Flash." From the game's judgment point of view, no amount of double flame flash could compare to a single charge. However, Gu Fei was able to see his opponent's attack clearly. He took a step forward and dodged his opponent's attack. Then, he slashed at his opponent with his sword. This was a method that completely evaded judgment. Ah! We hit it! Glazed Ice and the other two girls were still cheering. They thought that Gu Fei would definitely be hit by the charge if he charged head-on. In the end, the girl's body spewed fire as she passed by Gu Fei. Then, she burned herself into a white light. Ah, how could this be? The three girls were dumbfounded. I'm not going to go easy on you. Gu Fei swung his arms, indicating to the girls that he was serious. The three girls each stood in a different direction. It was impossible to kill all three of them at once. Gu Fei chanted and threw out a fireball. Then, he personally rushed to the other side. Suddenly, a sharp whistling sound could be heard. Gu Fei stopped in his tracks. In the game, the attack power and speed of an archer could be seen from the sound of the arrow flying through the air. In the current situation, Gu Fei believed that there was only one person who could shoot this powerful arrow. He turned his head and saw that the fireball he shot at the cleric was pierced through by the arrow. Sparks flew in all directions before falling to the ground and extinguishing. Then, he saw Yutian Shinming rush over from the direction the arrow came from, shouting, "Who dares touch my grapes?" Oh! This girl is grapes. Gu Fei sized up the cleric and sighed inwardly. Yutian! Look at how scared you've scared her. Yutian Shinming rushed over and stood in front of grapes. He winked at Gu Fei when no one was paying attention. Gu Fei wanted to praise Yutian Shinming for being able to shoot a moving fireball, but he was no longer in the mood after seeing Yutian Shinming's reaction. He sighed, "What are you going to do?" "I'll fight anyone who dares touch grapes." Yutian Shinming continued his act of saving the damsel in distress. Before they were done, unscathed in battle rushed over from nowhere. His voice could be heard even before he arrived, "Xiao Bing and Xiao Ying are under my protection. Come at me if you want to attack." Xiao Bing was, of course, Ice Glaze. As for Xiao Ying, Gu Fei looked up the names of the members of Amethyst and saw a sorceress called Ying. He guessed that she was the one in front of him. In the blink of an eye, Zhan Wushang appeared in front of him. He held his saber in front of him, looking like a hero. Judging from the way they looked at Gu Fei, it was as if Gu Fei was a troublemaker who took liberties with innocent women. Gu Fei was furious. He did not know what to say. The girls were confused. Ice Glaze asked weakly, "What's going on?" "It's internal strife." Gu Fei snapped. Yutian Shinming and Unscathed in battle stood straight, as if what they were doing was natural. The three girls looked at each other. They did not know how to deal with the situation. If that's the case. Gu Fei rolled up his sleeves, "I'll have to deal with you two first." Yutian Shinming said righteously, "Do you think it's that easy?" He raised his hand and fired a homing arrow at Gu Fei. Gu Fei flipped his sword and knocked it down. He completed his chant, "Fireball, shoot." Yutian Shinming did not dodge. He fired 2 consecutive arrows. One of them knocked down the fireball, and the other shot at Gu Fei. After Gu Fei released the fireball, he rushed towards him, and the arrow that was flying towards him dodged with a slight turn of his head. Imperial Sky God Ming laughed, and turned to run. Fuck! Gu Fei cursed in his heart. Yutian Shinming's movement speed was about the same as Gu Fei's. If he continued to chase after him, it would be the same as when he fought against Tsubasa Sakaratsuka, no one could do anything to the other. On the other side, Zhan Wushang hurriedly tried to curry favor with the three ladies. "Let's go, there are 2 of us here." The two of them had already pushed Gu Fei into the role of the antagonist. Ha, come and chase me. Yutian Shinming obviously knew that Gu Fei could not do anything to him, so he provoked him proudly. When he reached the ditch, he jumped over it. In the end, with a whoosh, the imperial divine cry disappeared from the surface of the earth. What's going on? Unscathed in battle was shocked. Gu Fei laughed in his heart. It was obvious that Brother Yu was hiding in the ditch. When Yutian Shinming jumped over the ditch, he pulled him down. Although Brother Yu was not as strong as them in terms of level and combat ability, he was definitely good at playing dirty tricks. Thinking back to when he owed the Han family young master the bill to drink the most expensive wine, Gu Fei only drank 3 glasses, while Brother Yu filled another bottle after 1 glass. He got the biggest advantage, but Gu Fei was the scapegoat in the future. Brother Yu's dirty tricks were obvious. No matter how strong an archer was, it was hard to win in close combat. Now that Yutian Shinming was taken down by Brother Yu, there was no need to worry anymore. Gu Fei turned around and rushed towards Unscathed in battle with his sword. As a warrior, Unscathed in battle obviously did not have the ability to kite Gu Fei. He stood still, but did not forget to express his goodwill to the girls. Stand behind me. The girls had long been confused by this mess. As soon as they heard Unscathed in battle, they immediately showed their good qualities and ran behind Unscathed in battle. Gu Fei rushed over quickly. Seeing Unscathed in battle blocking his way, he spread his hands and held a sword in each hand. A berserk warrior after class advancement. Gu Fei's heart tightened. This kind of warrior's two-handed whirlwind slash was very easy to deal with. Gu Fei had already experienced it from Unchung Mutsu. Unchung Mutsu was ranked 6th on the warrior leaderboard in the parallel world. Unscathed in battle was currently ranked 3rd. He was also known as the #1 warrior in the game, so his strength was probably even more terrifying. As he thought this, he saw Unscathed in battle lower his body and lower his sword. He's coming. Gu Fei shouted in his heart. He didn't dare to increase his speed. He hurriedly stopped and raised his sword, preparing to use a long-ranged attack to disrupt him. Unexpectedly, Unscathed in battle's 2 swords suddenly came together in front of him and he lowered his head. Fuck! Gu Fei was shocked. Then, he saw Unscathed in battle charge over. Gu Fei hurriedly dodged to the side. He raised his sword and was about to cast when Unscathed in battle's head moved to the side. His 2 swords dropped to his side and he twisted his waist. Fuck again. This time, Gu Fei directly shouted. Gu Fei didn't know exactly how far Unscathed in battle's charge was, but he was sure that his charge hadn't reached the end. He didn't expect him to cancel the skill midway. Moreover, the timing of the cancellation was so precise that he landed steadily in front of Gu Fei. Even worse, he immediately followed up with a whirlwind slash. Two-handed whirlwind slash's attack frequency was doubled. If he blocked it with one hand, he would be hit by the other sword before he was sent flying. This was something that Gu Fei had already experienced. To block this attack, Gu Fei could only think of one way, to use a two-handed sword. Characters without two-handed skills would use a two-handed weapon. The offhand wouldn't take damage, but block still existed. When Gu Fei's right hand stabbed forward to block the first slash, his left hand had already reached into his pocket and pulled out a fire baptism, instantly sending it out. Dang dang. 2 almost indiscernible sounds rang out. Gu Fei's body flew backwards, his health rapidly dropping in the air. Even though his offhand could block's priority was very low. Against the extremely high priority whirlwind slash, Gu Fei was still injured. How depressing. Gu Fei sighed. Perhaps he could endure this attack if his health was full, but he had been hit by Ice Glaze's Heaven's Fire Will before. Whether or not Gu Fei could land on the ground alive would be discussed in the next chapter. Chapter 167. Speaking of which, Gu Fei was sent flying by Unscathed in battle's whirlwind slash, and his life was in danger. But just as the readers expected, at the most critical moment, thanks to the author's blessing, a healing spell was cast on Gu Fei. Yes, that's right. You've all guessed wrong. The one who saved Gu Fei was not Han family young master, nor was it Luo Luo, but Butterfly Blue. Cough, back to the main story. Speaking of which, Gu Fei was sent flying by unscathed in battle's whirlwind slash. Just as he was lamenting the fragility of his life, 2 rays of holy light landed on Gu Fei, one after the other. Gu Fei glanced in both directions. On one side was the young master of the Han clan, and on the other side was Luo Luo. But the 2 faces were already locked in combat, clearly not expecting the other to show up. With 2 healing spells, Gu Fei's life was completely saved. He lay on the ground, panting. Unscathed in battle also chased after him in a panic, yelling as he ran, "Do you want to die?" What kind of explanation was that? Gu Fei was dumbfounded, and flipped himself up. What are you talking about? Why didn't you dodge? Unscathed in battle asked Gu Fei in a low voice, "Can you block my whirlwind slash so hard? That's even harder to dodge, right?" Gu Fei was dissatisfied. He had blocked whirlwind slash many times, but at that distance, he could only block and not dodge. After all, moving his wrist to block was much faster than moving his entire body to dodge. I slowed down. Unscathed in battle said, "I purposely left a gap for you to dodge." Did I? Gu Fei was surprised. To be honest, he was so focused on blocking the second attack that he did not pay much attention to the speed of unscathed in battle's whirlwind slash. Now that he thought about it carefully, he felt that unscathed in battle's stance was a bit slow. "Didn't you see me signal you?" Unscathed in battle said. Did I? Gu Fei was surprised again. He had already decided to block whirlwind slash, and focused on unscathed in battle's sword, not his face. Unscathed in battle had finished explaining, and raised his voice, "Now you know how powerful I am. Stand to the side." With that, he turned to look at Ice Glaze and said. At the same time, the 3 girls who were rushing over from Luoluo. "Aya, luckily we're here." Qianli almost died, June Rain said. "That's not right. Qianli is now an enemy." "Sister Luoluo, why did you save him?" The other girl was clear-headed. "It's a mistake. I'm used to it," Luoluo explained. Standing on the hilltop, the Han family young master slapped his forehead. He really couldn't bear to watch this chaotic situation any longer. Gu Fei stood up, peeling an orange and putting it into his mouth as he asked around, "What's going on?" The girls, who were notorious for their lack of ideas, looked at each other. Under normal circumstances, they would naturally start fighting. However, the girls were not stupid. They knew all too well what kind of experts were in the elite group. There was no need for them to fight. They would only be asking for a fight. Gu Fei alone was enough to take care of the 6 of them. Unscathed in battle whispered to Gu Fei, "Don't embarrass me. Let's go somewhere else and fight later." Gu Fei felt helpless. He looked at the young master of the Han clan, who was standing at the top of the mountain. The young master of the Han clan was expressionless, so he shouted towards the trench, "Where's Yutian?" Brother Yu poked his head out. "Yutian said he's not here." "Ah!" A depressed cry came from the ditch, followed by a song of, "Why is it always me who gets hurt?" The song gradually faded away. Obviously, unscathed in battle had shown his face in front of the girls. However, Yutian Shinming was completely embarrassed. Those who didn't know the inside story would definitely think that he fell into the ditch while flying a kite. "Wow, someone fell into the ditch." June Rain pointed at Brother Yu's head and laughed, "Aren't they all experts? How did he fall into the ditch?" Brother Yu climbed out of the ditch gloomily and looked at Gu Fei with a questioning gaze, meaning, "What should we do?" Gu Fei looked towards Unscathed in battle. Unscathed in battle immediately said, "Retreat, retreat first." Gu Fei then looked towards Han family young master. Han family young master helplessly spread his hands and walked down the hill. On the other side, the sword ghost also appeared and started moving towards them. Retreat, retreat first. Unscathed in battle increased his persuasion and changed to a message in the mercenary channel. It was hidden and could be seen by everyone. What should we do? Gu Fei asked. Let's retreat first. Han family young master said. That's right, a gentleman will help others achieve their dreams. Unscathed in battle laughed. But the reborn amethyst still had some objections. June Rain saw that the five were about to leave and immediately called out, Hey, where are you guys going? We're going for a meeting. Gu Fei waved his hand. Han family young master turned around and looked around. His gaze fell on Luoluo. She was the one who represented the reborn amethyst to the mercenary group. Even if she wasn't the leader, she was probably someone who had a say in the group. He immediately said to her, since we're all so familiar with each other, let's find a place and finish this fight. Oh. Then let's have a meeting as well. Luoluo said. Coordinates 110,125. I'll be waiting for you there. Han family young master said and left with the others. They were heading towards the coordinates he mentioned just now. Brothers, you're great. Tonight's drinks are on me. On the way, Unscathed in battle was extremely excited. He patted here and there, and finally put his hand on Gu Fei's shoulder, treating him like a brother. Gu Fei struggled a few times, but he really wasn't his match. He asked Brother Yu, where did Yutian go? Brother Yu pouted his lips in a certain direction. Gu Fei looked in that direction, but Unscathed in battle's head blocked his view. He pushed his head to the side and saw a lonely tree stump in the desolate wilderness. Yutian Shinming was sitting on it alone, looking miserable. The five of them were all amazed and moved towards that direction. Yutian Shinming saw the five of them and stood up to greet them. He still had a wronged expression on his face. Although he was dragged into the ditch by Brother Yu, he was still very clear about the subsequent development of the situation. Unscathed in battle showed his prowess and sent Gu Fei flying. On the other hand, he was a young man who accidentally fell into the ditch. Yutian Shinming's heart was extremely unbalanced. At this moment, Yutian Shinming was more and more like a child. The five adults didn't know what to say. They went up and patted his head to comfort him. Brother Yu was still criticizing Unscathed in battle, look at you. You're already an adult. Why are you snatching a girl from a child? Bringing Yutian Shinming, the six of them arrived at the location mentioned by Han family young master. It was a spacious area. There were no trees, mounds, or the ditch that Yutian Shinming hated. How are we going to fight? Gu Fei asked Han family young master. What about the two of you? Han family young master asked Unscathed in battle and Yutian Shinming. Unscathed in battle chuckled. We've messed around enough. Of course, we have to be serious. He had already shown his face in front of the girl and suppressed Gu Fei. He had nothing else to ask for. However, Yutian Shinming was unwilling. It was just that this was a serious moment to decide the outcome of the battle. It wasn't good for him to cause any unnecessary trouble. He could only show a sad face and express that he would follow the arrangement of the organization. Since everyone is willing to fight, there's no need for any tactics. We'll just face the enemy head-on. Han family young master said casually. The others nodded. Unscathed in battle was the most enthusiastic one. He patted Yutian Shinming's shoulder and said, Yutian, do a good job. Let the girls see how good you are. You can also show off your skills. Yutian Shinming nodded listlessly. The six of them didn't wait for long. They saw the girls coming from all directions. The order of arrival was based on the character's movement speed. Slender Waist Dance was the first to arrive. You're all here. Slender Waist Dance yelled. Gu Fei turned around and glanced at her. Can't you count? Just you wait. I'll take care of you later. Slender Waist Dance bared her teeth. She looked like she was about to pounce and bite someone. Amethyst mercenary group had a total of 20 people. Gu Fei had taken care of one of them, so there were still 19 left. When Imperial Sky God Ming saw the ladies, he immediately put away his lifeless face, and raised his cute smile to greet the ladies he was familiar with. After sending Gu Fei flying, unscathed in battle's confidence was boosted. He didn't greet the girls like Yutian Shenming did. Instead, he coolly stood to the side and waited for Yutian Shenming to finish greeting them. Then, he smiled and said to the girls, "Now it's time to fight. Don't blame us." The girls also smiled. "Don't blame us either. If everyone's here, then let's start." Han family young master said calmly. The two sides stood opposite each other. The child elite group stood in a single row. The amethyst mercenary group stood in 2 rows. The warriors and other close combat classes stood at the front, while the mages, archers, and priests stood at the back. The girls knew how to set up the most basic formation. "Let's fight. Stop dilly-dallying. Do you want me to make the first move?" Han family young master said lazily. "Go." Zhan Wushang looked like he wanted to let the ladies have a taste of his prowess. With a loud roar, he charged forward. On the other hand, the girls on the other side were quite calm. The melee classes at the front made way for a small opening, while the mages and archers at the back took the initiative to attack. Their targets were Undying Battle, who was charging at the front lines. Clang! Clang! The archer's arrows landed on Unscathed in Battle's armor. Han family young master's precise healing spells also landed at the right time, helping Unscathed in Battle to charge forward smoothly. Heavenly Fire Wheel. 1,000 Flames of the Flaming Tree. The mages chanted. Although Unscathed in Battle was the only one charging forward, the reinforcements were right behind him. He could use AoE spells in case of emergency. As an expert, Unscathed in Battle would not be hurt by spells so easily. As soon as he heard the chant, he immediately used charge, dodging the spells and charging into the group of girls. The close combat classes immediately surrounded Unscathed in Battle, but this was the result he wanted. He flipped his swords and was ready to cast Whirlwind Slash. However, Gu Fei had already taken a few steps behind him. He pointed the night streamer in his hand and completed the chant, 1,000 Flames of the Flaming Tree, rise. Chapter 168. The flames seemed to rise together with Unscathed in Battle's Whirlwind Slash. At first glance, it really looked like Unscathed in Battle had cast a skill similar to Flaming Whirlwind Slash. The fire borrowed the power of the wind, and under the effect of the Whirlwind Slash, the Flaming Tree 1,000 layers flames spread outwards with Unscathed in Battle as the center. Unfortunately, the girls were also surrounding him, and in an instant, the flames had already engulfed everyone. Even the experts of a big guild like Singing Wine were within the range of Gu Fei's spells, so of course the girls weren't enough. At this time, the system was continuously reporting the changes in the points of the two sides. White light flashed in the sea of flames, and brother you couldn't help but sigh, "Crazy, too crazy, I'm going to record this." But under the light, a figure appeared in the blink of an eye, rushing towards Gu Fei at an extremely fast speed. As expected. Gu Fei exclaimed in his heart. The one who rushed out was naturally Slender Waist Dance. Her 73% fire resistance equipment had been returned to her by Gu Fei the day before. Previously, when he discovered that Slender Waist Dance was wearing this jacket, he expected that she would definitely be able to survive the fire magic. Slender Waist Dance took off the jacket as she rushed over. This was the same discovery that Gu Fei had made when he was flying towards Singing Wine's magic formation yesterday. Obviously, after resisting the fire magic, Slender Waist Dance also needed to change into other equipment to increase her attack power. Otherwise, with all her points in agility, there was no reason for her attack power to be so high just by relying on an exquisite dagger. Yutian! Gu Fei yelled. The instant she took off her equipment, she had no defense, and Yutian Shenming's attack power was enough to instantly kill her. However, the sound of an arrow didn't ring out. Gu Fei turned around to look, and saw Yutian Shinming's eyes were wide open, and his nose was bleeding. Slender Dance deserved to be called the most valiant RMB warrior. After taking off her jacket and equipment, the close-fitting jacket that covered her body was also extremely exquisite, accentuating her wonderful figure. Coupled with her pretty face, Yutian Shinming, the little pervert, was immediately knocked down with a nosebleed. By the time he reacted, Slim Waist Dancer had already put on another set of equipment. Useless, Gu Fei said in disdain. After changing her equipment, Thin Waist Dance moved even faster. In the blink of an eye, she arrived in front of Gu Fei. Gu Fei raised his sword and slashed out. Slender Waist Dance's reaction was still very fast. She dodged the sword and stabbed the dagger in her hand at Gu Fei. No matter how powerful Gu Fei's attack was, his defense and HP were as weak as an ordinary mage's. He could be killed instantly by a normal attack from Slim Waist Dancer. Seeing that the dagger was about to stab into her, Slim Waist Dance's face had already revealed a victorious smile. But all of a sudden, he felt a heavy blow on the back of his head. In the blink of an eye, all the movements of the Slim Waist Dance came to a halt, and he stood rooted to the spot like a piece of wood. This is... Slender Waist Dance was dazed for a moment. Although this was a skill that she knew, it didn't mean that she had experienced it before. Sap. Sword Demon's figure appeared behind Slender Waist Dance. He expressionlessly threw the wooden stick in his hand to the side and replaced it with his Frostbite's memory dagger. This dagger's attack was already quite ordinary, but it had a few strong additional attributes. It was really hard to find a replacement for it. Gu Fei smiled at the surprised Slender Waist Dance. This is a group fight. Do you think it's a one-on-one? After saying that, he flipped his sword. Double flame flash, flash. To prevent any accidents, Sword Demon also used Frostbite's memory and used a backstab. Although Slender Waist Dance's face was filled with unwillingness, she still turned into a white light and disappeared. The system calculated the final result. Gu Fei scanned the battlefield and directly threw the jacket that Slender Waist Dance took off to the ground. This woman is really wasteful. Gu Fei muttered as he walked forward and raised his sword. The jacket flew onto his shoulder and the system reported the final result. Although the Child Elite group had completely wiped out the Amethyst Mercenary group, they had also lost one person and didn't get a perfect result. The white light of teleportation lit up one by one. The 5 people were sent out of the battlefield and arrived in front of the mercenary building. The girls who had come out earlier were also waiting here. They were speechless when they saw Gu Fei. Gu Fei really didn't hold back at all and instantly killed all of them. Slender Waist Dance glared at him angrily. It was obvious that she was unwilling to be ambushed by Sword Demon. Gu Fei didn't care. He pulled the jacket off his shoulder and threw it to her. You don't want your jacket anymore? Slender Waist Dance caught it and her expression became much better. At least you have some conscience. It's a competition, so of course I have to do my best. Don't you guys agree? Gu Fei shouted at the girls. TCH. The girls looked at Gu Fei with disdain and dispersed. Yutian Shinming and Unscathed in Battle were elated. It seemed like Gu Fei's image in the eyes of the girls wasn't that great after all. Brother, you concluded like a philosopher. If there's no distance, there's no worship. This saying is correct. This mercenary competition ended relatively quickly, and there was still a long time before the next guild competition. The few of them surrounded Unscathed in Battle. You're the one who said it, huh? Unscathed in Battle stopped smiling and stared at Gu Fei with a serious expression. What happened? Give me an explanation. On the battlefield just now, Gu Fei had killed both the girl and Unscathed in Battle. In order to let you dodge, I slowed down my chant. Gu Fei said. Really? Unscathed in Battle was confused. Didn't you see me signal you with my eyes? Gu Fei said. Really? Unscathed in Battle raised his voice. Ask everyone. Gu Fei waved his hand at the others. Everyone nodded. Oh. Unscathed in battle was relieved. Let's go drink. It's my treat. Unscathed in battle was excited again. Wait. Yutian Shinming suddenly said. Everyone thought he was going to throw a tantrum again, but then they heard Yutian Shinming say excitedly, I got a random reward. Ah. Everyone was shocked. According to the rules, the random reward would be given out randomly by the system. The winner of every competition would have a chance to get it. The system would directly send the reward into the winner's pocket. According to the system, the probability of a random reward appearing would increase as the competition progressed. Currently, it was the 4th round. According to the feedback from the players on the forum, the probability of a random reward appearing was extremely low. For Yutian Shinming to be able to get it, he was definitely a super lucky person. What is it? The others asked hurriedly. Yutian Shinming carefully put his hand into his pocket and slowly took it out. It was a scroll. Eternal or one time only? Brother Yu asked. Although these two were both scrolls, their value couldn't be compared. Eternal. Yutian Shinming said slowly. Wow. Everyone gasped. But then Yutian Shinming's expression changed. It was as if he had eaten 10,000 years old poison. He tore open the scroll in his hand and looked it up and down a few times. In the end, he shouted angrily, Are you kidding me? A mage scroll. Is the system blind? This time I'm not a mage, not a mage, not a mage, I'm an archer. Yutian Shinming roared angrily at the sky, roaring, Brother you sighed like a philosopher again. There's only a thin line between heaven and hell. This saying is also true. Qianli, take it. After Yutian Shinming vented his anger, he sadly threw the scroll to Gu Fei. Everyone was shocked, including Gu Fei. The value of the Eternal Scroll was not ordinary. Even if Yutian Shinming couldn't use it, he could still make a huge profit by selling it. Even if Gu Fei was a newbie, he knew this basic knowledge. He immediately threw it back to Yutian Shinming. Go sell it. Sell it? It just so happens that you can use it, take it. Imperial Heaven Divine Ming threw it back. Since the system is shamelessly giving it out randomly, there might be a mage who gets the Eternal Scroll for the archer skill. You can take it and exchange it with someone else. Gu Fei retorted. As a gaming expert, Yutian Shinming naturally thought of this. But just now, he was extremely angry and urgently needed to vent his anger. In addition, Gu Fei had helped him a great deal, so he threw the scroll to Gu Fei in a majestic manner. What the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve over. Now that he had calmed down, he started to hesitate. You two are too manly. Unscathed in battle expressed his admiration. Such a valuable thing, one wanted to give it away, and the other refused. Unscathed in battle felt that their characters were worthy of admiration. Then he heard Gu Fei shake his head and say, I can't use that scroll. What? Everyone was shocked. Say I don't have lightning mana. Gu Fei said. As it turned out, this guy had already used it when he received the scroll. Everyone suddenly understood. So you're saying, you have to become a lightning mage to use it? Brother you said. Probably, but I want to change to water to slow down the enemy. That's more useful. Gu Fei said. Those who were faster than Gu Fei and kite him made Gu Fei extremely angry. So that means Yutian's dream of using the scroll to get 2 classes is impossible. Brother you sighed. Everyone nodded. If that's the case, then I'll take it and see if anyone wants to exchange it. Yutian Shinming could put the scroll away with a clear conscience. Post a message on the trading forum and see if anyone wants to exchange it. Brother you suggested. Okay. Yutian Shinming nodded. He was also a veteran, so he didn't need Brother Yu's advice. We've been talking for a long time. What skill does this scroll have? Wall of electricity. Yutian Shinming said. Just the name alone is boring. Gu Fei sighed. He liked Dual Flame Flash, a skill that could be used in conjunction with martial arts. TSK TSK TSK. The others were all praising, take it out and admire it. Hey, are you going to drink or not? Han family young master finally lost his patience. Chapter 169. The six of them went to the tavern in a grandiose manner. Unscathed in battle had shown his face in front of the girl and earned enough points. He also realized that Gu Fei's existence wasn't as scary as he and Yutian Shinming had imagined, so he was in a good mood. Although Yutian Shinming had become a teenager who had lost his footing and fallen into a ditch, the eternal skill scroll had calmed him down a little. Although he had initially resented it because it was a mage's skill scroll, he was still a mage. Besides that, he and Unscathed in battle shared Gu Fei's existence in the girl's heart. When he realized that, he felt even more relieved. As for the other four, the mercenary group had won again and someone was treating them to drinks. These two reasons were enough to make them happy. All in all, they had a great time drinking. Gu Fei had more or less held back. After all, there was still a guild battle to be fought later. With the sword demon as an example, everyone knew that drunkenness existed in the game. However, the others didn't seem to care about the next match at all. They drank to their heart's content and had no qualms about it. Gu Fei sighed in his heart. It was great being in a big guild. He didn't have to bear so much responsibility. If he were to get drunk now, Amethyst would lose 50% of their combat power in the next match. There was still half an hour left until the start of the guild battle. They drank to their climax and had no intention of leaving. Gu Fei warmly reminded, hey, the next match is about to start. It was already the fourth round. Half of the guilds had been eliminated. There was no longer a queue at the teleportation circle. They just had to make sure they weren't late. Brother Yu and Sword Demon were expressionless. These two were guildless ghosts. Han family young master raised his glass and looked at Gu Fei meaningfully. Gu Fei's heart skipped a beat. Only then did he remember that the Han family young master and the rest were personally eliminated by Gu Fei yesterday. Shifting his gaze to the next player, Unscathed in battle glared at him and said, my guild has been eliminated a long time ago. Unscathed in battle's guild was called Warrior's Home, and it was a hobby club. The size of the guild was not large, and the class allocation within the guild was extremely uneven. The members lacked the heart of an overlord. In short, they didn't have what a strong guild should have, but they had everything they shouldn't have. In addition, they did not have a superhuman like Gu Fei to save them. In the second round of the competition, they were eliminated by a second-rate guild. The last one was Yutian Shinming. He was lovingly caressing his skill scroll as he fiddled with his little abacus. Yutian, are you not going to the guild competition? Gu Fei asked. Yutian Shinming hesitated. A big guild like reigning the four seas didn't really matter if they had one more or one less member. You're pretty lucky today. Maybe you'll get a scroll. Gu Fei said. Yutian Shinming immediately stood up. Let's go. By then, the girls on Gu Fei's side had already started shouting. Amethyst would always gather half an hour before the start of the competition, and then July would introduce their opponents to them. Although the introduction had nothing to do with the strategy they would use later on, the girls all believed that a deeper understanding of their opponents would increase their chances of winning. However, it had to be mentioned that the girls' understanding of their opponents was very one-sided. Compared to Brother Yu's information, it was a far cry from it. Because they always missed the main point, a pleasant name would always attract their attention. They hurried to the teleportation point and entered the battlefield. 50 girls were gathered together, eyeing Gu Fei like a tiger watching its prey. Hey! Gu Fei called out to them and found a corner to ambush them. July began to introduce their opponents. Yunmu Guild, Level 4, 500 members, Guild Leader Unchung Matsu, a warrior, and one of the top warriors on the leaderboard. Ha! Gu Fei already felt that the name sounded familiar. July continued, I have to mention that the Muyun mercenary group belonging to the Yunmu Guild was defeated by the child elite group. Everyone knows about this. All the girls looked at Gu Fei with an "oh." Gu Fei smiled foolishly. I hope Comrade Qianli will treat them as cruelly as he treated us just now, July said seriously. Of course, of course. We must treat our enemies as cold as winter, Gu Fei said. Then shouldn't you treat your companions with the warmth of spring? Let us see, Luo said. Continue with the information, Gu Fei said. As the guild leader, July was still very prudent. She didn't go along with Luo and lead the crowd to tease them. She focused on the bigger picture and continued to introduce the Yunmu Guild situation. It was nothing more than the number of high-leveled members, the number of different classes, and so on. Compared to Brother Yu's information that pointed out special characters that needed to be taken note of, July's information was really superficial. The match was about to begin in 5 minutes. However, the number of people who had entered the arena was still at the initial number of 50. The girls were curious, but when they were teleported to the map, the number of Yunmu Guild's 500 members was still exactly 50. As for the reborn amethyst, including Gu Fei, there was an extra 51. What's going on? The girls discussed. Gu Fei understood. At that moment, he completely understood the Han family young master's strategy for the big picture. Yunmu Guild only sent out 50 out of the 500 members. Obviously, it wasn't that they couldn't participate in the match. They did it on purpose. The reason? They were scared by the big kite strategy on the forum. The mercenary group under the Yunmu Guild fell to this strategy. The guild's opponent in this round was the one who used this strategy to defeat the second largest guild, Music for Wine. How could Yunmu's heart not be beating like a drum? Then, he made a prompt decision. This time, no matter what, he would not suffer such a loss again. After investigating the reborn amethyst, they found out that the guild was actually very small. It was just that they had a valiant slender waist dance. The experience gained from the few days of guild and mercenary battles had pushed slender waist dance to the throne of level 42. She was now the #1 player in the Parallel Worlds level leaderboard. Other than that, they heard that there was a man in the Pure Beauty Guild. Everyone instinctively thought that this kind of existence that exceeded common sense must have some extraordinary ability, so they should pay more attention to it. Other than that, Yunmu reluctantly chose a few characters from the reborn amethyst to focus on. Truth be told, these people were definitely the lowest of the low in Yunmu. Now that they received such treatment, the Shepherd's Guild was indeed a little paranoid. Regardless, they only sent out 50 people to fight in order to prevent the big kite strategy. From that moment onwards, they had completely fallen into the Han family young master's trap. It took a lot of effort to set up this trap, and now the reborn amethyst was the one who got the better end of the deal. It felt like they had made a wedding dress for someone else. With this question in mind, Gu Fei conducted an interview with the Han family young master. If I were you, I would purposely lose this match to Yunmu Guild. That way, my strategy will be even more perfect, said the Han family young master. Of course, I know you wouldn't want to. So kill as much as you can, and let them feel the pressure and difference in strength, said the Han family young master. Also, cover your face. Don't let them know that you're from our mercenary group, it's good for the group, suggested the Han family young master. Covering his face wasn't a big deal, so Gu Fei immediately took out a black cloth and tied it around his face, but it quickly attracted the attention of the girls. What are you doing? Asked the girls. This is a strategy, you guys don't understand, Gu Fei waved his hand. Tisk. The girls hissed. They have the same number of people as us, don't run around, let's fight them together. Gu Fei suggested. Yeah. The girls agreed, and a few of them who ran quickly stopped and returned to take care of the crowd. Hey, come back, the group has decided to fight together, Gu Fei sent a message to Slim Waist Dance. When did they decide? Asked Slim Waist Dance. Just now, said Gu Fei. Fuck, why didn't you say so earlier? I already saw the enemy. Slim Waist Dance ran back gloomily. The group of girls gathered together seemed to have a bit of an imposing manner. It was just that their chatter was a bit noisy. After walking a few meters, the girls suddenly came to a realization: since we don't need to split up, why should we run? Can't we just wait here for them to come? The suggestion received unanimous approval, and so they stopped and lined up, waiting for the enemy to come. Not long after, the Yunmu Guild's army of 50 people charged over valiantly. With the mentality of sharing glory and loss together, the Yunmu Guild wouldn't let anyone be left alone for the enemy to gain points. Kill. Seeing that the enemy was right in front of them, the Yunmu Guild's morale was boosted, and they charged forward in a group. Archers, mages, shouted July. The archers of the Reborn Amethyst Guild stepped forward, shooting randomly at the enemy. The Yunmu Guild was at the forefront, and the first to attack were the archers. Whoosh 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 whoosh, their shots were orderly. The results of the shooting were out quickly, and 2 of the Reborn Amethyst girls fell. Their quality was poor, and they didn't work together, so they couldn't match up to the elites chosen from 500 people. After the priests started working hard, both sides seemed to be evenly matched, but it was obvious that the priests of the Reborn Amethyst Guild had a lot more work to do. Even so, there were still some who fell in time. The distance between the 2 sides narrowed, and they were now in the attack range of the mages. The mages on both sides stepped forward, preparing to chant. The gap between them was evident once again. The archers of both sides adjusted their targets, and started shooting at the mages in an attempt to interrupt their chanting. Although a few of the archers of the Reborn Amethyst Guild had fallen, the rest did the same. However, the warriors of the Yunmu Guild had already rushed forward, and were ready to block the arrows with their bodies. The priests behind them also started working hard. The Reborn Amethyst Guild was lacking in awareness, and only reacted when they saw the enemy do it. How could there be a moment of hesitation in a battle that could change so quickly? By the time they thought of it, the next step of the battle had already started. The exposed spell formation attracted the attention of the black-clothed man in Yunmu's guild. Quite a unique design. What are they trying to do? Thought the Yunmu Guild, but they didn't pay much attention to it, and continued with what they were doing. The cooperation of the Yunmu Guild was seamless, and the archers were assigned to their targets in an instant. Fortunately, Gu Fei was prepared for this. He shouted, "Who's that?" and started chanting with a clear conscience, "1,000 flames of the cinder tree, rise. Fire will from the heavens, fall." Amidst the chants from both sides, the archers had already released their arrows. Of course, the Yunmu Guild was not worried, but the chants of the Reborn Amethyst Guild's mages were interrupted. However, Slender Waist Dancer was the first to rush out and block Gu Fei's way. Those that she could shoot down, she would, and those that she could not, she would block with her body. With good equipment and high defense, Slender Waist Dancer would not die from a few arrows. The Reborn Amethyst Guild girls had already started to dodge the spells, and it was a mess. On the other hand, the Yunmu Guild was calm. The only one who had completed the chant was Gu Fei. A single person's spell was nothing to be afraid of. That was a very mature judgment. The Yunmu Guild did not mind, and advanced in the midst of the chaos, ready to take down the Reborn Amethyst Guild. Even when the firewall flashed in the sky, and the flames rose from the ground, they did not waver. It was just that the priests waved their staffs a little faster. And so, when Gu Fei's 2 spells were perfectly cast, the Yunmu Guild members suddenly felt empty. How did the perfect formation of 50 people suddenly become empty? How did the companions who were just beside them disappear in the blink of an eye? In front? Behind? Left? Right? They could not find them anywhere. All they could see was a sea of fire. What woke them up was the god of the system, who was everywhere and always kept a clear head. The system kept reminding them, and finally announced the current point ratio between the Yunmu Guild and the Reborn Amethyst Guild, 14-36. The Reborn Amethyst Guild girls cheered in panic. The Yunmu guild members were baffled. Let's go. Gu Fei pushed Slender Waist Dancer's back. Slender Waist Dancer nodded and leaped forward. Gu Fei followed closely behind her. The girls who were running and dodging all over the place just now also began to attack in a scattered manner. Gu Fei's spell landed in the middle of the Yunmu Guild formation, splitting the left and right sides into two. Even so, the two sides still lined up neatly. The Yunmu Guild's teamwork was excellent. However, before they could come back to their senses, Slender Waist Dance and Gu Fei, who had rushed over from the left and right, had already started a massacre. The score kept changing. When the other girls arrived, half of the Yunmu Guild members had already been killed by Gu Fei and Slender Waist Dancer. After that, Gu Fei, who had used up all his mana, retreated to eat a banana. Slender Waist Dancer's speed also decreased after she finished sprinting. But with the absolute advantage in numbers, the girls were not at a disadvantage at all. The Yunmu Guild members fell one after another. Finally, there was only one left. Their guild leader, who was also the leader of the Muyun mercenary group, Unchung Matsu. An expert naturally had to have the demeanor of an expert. Surrounded by dozens of people, Unchung Matsu was very calm. The defeat was irreversible, and it was useless to be sad. At this moment, Unchung Matsu's mind was filled with the masked man in black. The clothes were familiar, but he didn't have time to look at the thing in his hand. Was it a sword? If that was the case. Unchung Matsu tried to find Gu Fei in the crowd. But after Gu Fei retreated to eat a banana, he was piled up by the girls behind the crowd. While he was feeling regretful, he suddenly heard someone yell from the crowd, "Leave this one to me." Then, the masked man rushed from the back to the front and stood in front of Unchung Matsu. The masked man was still there, but he wasn't in black. The appraisal result showed that it was the burning robe, and he was holding a saber instead of a sword. The appraisal result showed that it was the fire baptism. Did I see it wrong? Unchung Matsu was confused, but after thinking about it, he immediately asked, "Why are you covering your face?" "It's a tactic," Gu Fei said. "Tactic?" Gu Fei nodded and didn't say anything else. He raised his body and was about to swing his saber. Unchung Matsu took a step back, his hands hanging down. Whirlwind slash. Gu Fei thought to himself. At this stage of the battle, Unchung Matsu still had enough rage to use whirlwind slash. He had a lot of battle experience. The specialty of Unchung Matsu's whirlwind slash was that it would be used when the opponent was far away, so the opponent couldn't interrupt it first. The flaw was that the distance was too far, so the skill would be used too early, and it would be easy for the opponent to dodge it. As an expert, how could Gu Fei not see through the crux of the matter? He immediately feinted forward, wanting to lure Unchung Matsu to use his skill. He would dodge it, and when his skill stopped, he would calmly cut him down. Unchung Matsu was indeed fooled by Gu Fei's feint. He flipped his wrist and was about to use his skill. Gu Fei saw it clearly. He was already preparing to retreat, but he didn't expect a faster figure to appear behind Unchung Matsu. The person swung his club and smashed it into Unchung Matsu's head. Unchung Matsu's movement instantly stopped. The person put away his club and smiled at Gu Fei. "This is a group fight. Do you think it's one-on-one?" Gu Fei smiled helplessly and waved at the girls. "Let's all come together." Fireballs, arrows, Gu Fei's sword, Slender Waist Dance's dagger, and Unchung Matsu's white light formed the final scene of the match. In the teleportation circle outside the guild building, the Yunmu Guild members were dejected. The fact that Unchung Matsu was teleported out meant that they had lost this match. "Damn it, I was ambushed. I thought it was one-on-one." Unchung Matsu was depressed. Before he died, he thought that Slender Waist Dance's words were directed at him. Not long after, the system calculated the winner's purple crystal of resurrection and distributed the reward. Then, the winner was teleported to the teleportation formation outside the guild building. Unchung Matsu had been watching this direction for a long time. When he saw Amethyst, he immediately greeted, "Hey, brother." Gu Fei turned a deaf ear to him and ran away with a flick of his sleeves. His speed was so fast that Muti of Yunzhong had no intention of chasing after him. He could only ask the girls of Amethyst Reborn, "How do I address that brother?" The girls looked at each other. Obviously, this was the same as the people from drinking and singing. After recognizing Gu Fei's high magic damage, they had the intention of recruiting him. "What are you doing?" "He's from our guild." "What are you trying to do?" Slender Waist Dance pointed at the man's wild ambition. Unchung Mutsu did not mind and smiled. "I want to get to know him." "What's there to get to know?" "Everyone knows what you're thinking. Go 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 go." Slender Waist Dance chased Unchung Mutsu away. Unchung Mutsu did not get angry. He helplessly returned to his own guild and told a few members, "Let's ask around about that sorcerer. He's the only male player in Amethyst. It shouldn't be hard to find him, right?" "I've never heard of him before," someone replied. Cloud City had a pure female guild, Amethyst. Many people knew about it after the non-smiler incident, but it was only recently that they found out that there was a male player in the guild. "Ugh, let's ask around about their opponents in the previous matches. The news probably came from these places," Unchung Mutsu said. "Maybe some of them know him." Unchung Mutsu suddenly remembered something and slapped his thigh. "Fuck me. When I asked the people from singing and drinking about how they lost the last match, they didn't mention anything about such a powerful sorcerer. Damn it, they've been thinking about this for a long time. Fuck, hurry up. Ask everyone in the guild." The people from Yunmu Guild quickly went to ask around. Every corner of Cloud City was filled with rumors about a masked man in black. Chapter 170. As early as a few years ago, people knew that the most precious thing in the 21st century was talent. There were 3 types of talents that were absolutely indispensable in building a guild. First, a charismatic leader. Second, a strategist with wisdom. Third, an assassin with strong combat abilities. The first type of talent only needed one, the second type of talent depended on the size of the guild, and the third type of talent was the more the better. Every player in the game could be considered as the third type of talent. However, a mage like Gu Fei who could insta-kill anyone with a wave of his hand was a talent that was second to none. He was the best of the third type, and could take on the role of a core assassin in any major guild. A core assassin usually had the strength to fight a group of people alone. As the core of a team, the entire team would revolve around him to create a unique strategy that could maximize his power. Assassin players were everywhere, but there were too few who could become a core assassin. This kind of peerless expert would either have a solid amount of RMB as a backing, or have the unparalleled luck of triggering a hidden mission just by taking a fall, or they would have a close team that had strong relationships with each other, and everyone would work together to create such an expert. Among the 5 roaches in the parallel world, Slim Waist Dancer was definitely the first type. Players like Southblade and Deepwater, these 2 professional players, most likely had the support of a studio and were part of the power of a group. The situation of the other 2 was temporarily unknown. As the main character, Gu Fei could basically be considered as the second type of talent with luck. In addition to the unusual incident of bringing a full set of martial arts skills into the game, he had directly stepped into the 5 roaches territory. Therefore, it was not difficult to understand why the guild leaders who had seen Gu Fei's powerful spells would always remember him. That night, when Gu Fei was sleeping peacefully, Singing Wine and Yunmu held an emergency meeting that very night to discuss the issue of discovering this powerful mage. Originally, Singing with Wine had already started working on this project yesterday, but the reply that Purple Crystal Rebirth had promised them had yet to be heard from them. As for Against the Current, he was too embarrassed to pursue the matter. After all, even a blind man could tell that he was trying to poach Aqua Rose. It was only natural that Aqua Rose would keep quiet about it. After learning that the Yunmu Guild had been defeated by the Reborn Amethyst in the tournament, Countercurrent immediately realized that they could no longer afford to offend the powerful sorcerer. the people from Yunmu must be making their move as soon as possible. That was why Countercurrent gathered more people overnight to find out more about the sorcerer's background. In the offices of the two major guilds, the leaders of the two major guilds said the same thing: we have to be quick, we have to find out the mage's identity before Yunmu, we have to make contact with him. Even the plans discussed in the meeting were very similar. Firstly, coming into contact with the reborn amethyst was naturally the fastest and most effective method. He had to think of a way to try it. Secondly, there might be people who could recognize the reborn amethyst's opponents within a few days. Thirdly, get in touch with everyone in Cloud City. There might be people who could recognize the sorcerer. Lastly, he had to emphasize that he could not reveal that the sorcerer was a powerful character. He had to find out more about him in the right way to avoid attracting the attention of the second Yunmu guild member. With that being the case, there was a slight difference in how the two guilds carried out the plan. Singing Wine was indeed a major guild full of talents. When they mentioned getting in touch with the reborn amethyst, a few handsome guys who claimed to be experts in picking up girls immediately volunteered. They claimed that if they were to launch an attack together, there would definitely be people in the Reborn Amethyst Guild who would be charmed. Then, they would ask questions without leaving any traces behind. When Countercurrent heard that it was a good idea, he immediately approved the few handsome guys to pick up girls. He also promised that if they succeeded, the guild would bear all the expenses incurred in the process. On the other hand, the Yunmu Guild was not inferior to the men. The one who volunteered was a female player. The plan was to apply to join the Reborn Amethyst Guild. By then, there was no need to say anything. All they had to do was look at the guild's member list and the truth would be revealed. It was very simple. Unchung Mutsu nodded in approval when he heard that it was a good idea. He also promised that he would find a way to compensate for the guild's losses due to quitting the guild due to the mission. The execution of the second plan was relatively more consistent. They started from the website. They would first check who the Reborn Amethyst Guild's opponent was before contacting them. Both of them were small guilds that were completely out of Countercurrent's and Unchung Mutsu's sights. It was not easy to find out who the members of these unknown guilds were. Fortunately, they could find out who the guild leaders of these two guilds were in the guild building. Countercurrent and Unchung Mutsu entered the guild building almost at the same time. Both of them were leaders of major guilds in Cloud City. Although they did not know each other personally, they still recognized each other when they bumped into each other. Both of them guessed the other's intentions when they saw the same route. They smiled awkwardly at each other and went about their own business without saying a word. The names of the two guild leaders were quickly found out. The first one was added as a friend. He was not online. The second one. When they saw the name, Countercurrent and Unchung Mutsu's hearts skipped a beat. Tsubasa Sakaratsuka was actually a top player on the level ranking leaderboard. Even if this kind of expert was online, the friend's switch would not be turned on. The two of them tried it out, and sure enough, it was true. When they walked out of the building with a gloomy expression, the two of them met again. When they thought that the other party must have experienced the same thing as them, they could not help but feel a little better. Actually, there was still a loophole, but the two of them did not know about it. However, they could not be blamed for this. Who would have thought that Tsubasa Sakaratsuka's friend option would be so wretched as to only allow female characters to add him as a friend? Plan 2 obviously needed time to continue, so it could be carried out at the same time as Plan 3. The two guilds sent out a large number of people to follow up on Cloud City and its surrounding areas. Do you know a male player in Amethyst? This was a common question that everyone asked. There were only two answers. First, did Amethyst accept male players as well? Second, fuck. Why are you asking again? Who are you? Due to the lack of scientific consultation and unity, coupled with the players' mobility, many players were harassed by this question multiple times. Some of the more fragile ones could not take it anymore and ran to the offline area to log off with tears streaming down their faces. That night, Cloud City had the lowest number of players online since the game's launch. It was all because of the two guilds' questions. What was even more tragic was that there was still no conclusion. During the search, they met Amethyst's opponent from the first two rounds. The conversation was as follows. You guys fought with Amethyst before, right? Yes. The entire guild was shaking hands excitedly when they heard the news. They finally found her. They quickly asked, do you know there's a male wizard in their guild? Yes. With tears in their eyes, everyone hugged each other. This matter was finally coming to an end. What's the wizard's name? They pricked up their ears, afraid that they had misheard. How would I know? The other party retorted. At $% and the people of the two great guilds had played the question and answer game for an entire night, so their nerves had become somewhat weak. They had unexpectedly forgotten that even if it was these two guilds, it was more likely that they were in the same situation as Song and Wine and Yunmu. The entire guild had seen this person, but no one knew his name. I live in the martial world, and the martial world is filled with legends about me, but no one knows who I am. A blurry figure in black appeared in front of countless people from the two guilds, and spoke slowly to everyone. When Upstream and Unchung Mutsu rested at a tavern in the city, it was already the 47th time that the two of them had met by chance that night. Before this, the two of them had met at the 46th corner of Cloud City. As the guild leader, of course he had to set an example. The number of questions and answers they had played was no less than any other guild member. Now that they had met again, the hostility from before had completely disappeared, and was replaced by mutual appreciation. Sit. Upstream said weakly to Unchung Mutsu. Unchung Mutsu sat across from Upstream with a tired face, and waved at the tavern's waiter, Wine. How are things on your side? Upstream asked. Why are you asking? I'm the same as you. Unchung Mutsu said. This question shouldn't have been asked. Their expressions were carved from the same mold, and it could be seen how similar their situations were. Sigh. They both let out a long sigh, and Unchung Mutsu's wine was brought over. Cheers to you, you've worked hard. Unchung Mutsu raised his cup to Upstream. You've worked hard too. Upstream smiled bitterly, and the two cups clinked together, and both drank it in one gulp. I don't understand, such a strong person, why isn't he famous at all? Unchung Mutsu said. Upstream shook his head. Maybe there are too few people who are pulling all-nighters. If it was during the day, we might have gotten something. Maybe. Unchung Mutsu also agreed with this statement. This was because their first plan was always killed because of this reason. The girls from Amethyst who were reborn didn't seem to be online during the night. The group of handsome guys sent out by drunken songs went around the city and created coincidental encounters. Every time they met a girl, they would ask, "Are you Amethyst?" and when they heard that they weren't, they would turn around and leave. Soon, many girls in Cloud City were angry. What's the meaning of this? So what if you're not Amethyst? Do you want to be looked down upon? This time, all the girls in Cloud City were offended. A few of the girls who were good at picking up girls didn't know that if they wanted to pick up girls from now on, they would have to go far away. The spy sent out by Yunmu Guild went straight to Amethyst's office, but there was no one there either. The guild leader wasn't online either. In order to show their sincerity in joining the guild, they simply waited there like idiots, and were even sitting at the door. After that, the group of girls from Drunken Songs mistook them as members of Amethyst, and went up to try to please them. When they finally understood, both sides almost got into a fight. Sigh. Speaking of this, both of them shook their heads. This happened on the 40th time they met, and it was resolved through negotiation. At the same time, their first plan was seen through by the other party, and I immediately used it. However, Drunken Songs quickly found a candidate for the female spy. Yunmu Guild also wanted to get a few handsome guys to seduce them, but no one dared to do so despite the generous reward. Because of this, Unchung Mutsu was still a little indignant. I say, what are you going to do next? Against the Current asked. This. Unchung Matsu hesitated. Sigh, why can't I say it? If we keep going like this, I guarantee that in the end, we'll only find out one step after another, and neither of us will be faster than the other. Do you believe me? That's not what I mean, I just haven't thought of what to do next, Unchung Matsu said. I don't think it's a good idea to keep asking. How many players are there in Cloud City? 100,000. 200,000. 300,000. Unchung Matsu said. Both are possible. Against the Current nodded seriously. How long do we have to keep asking? You have to know that our guilds only have around 1,000 people in total, and we can't guarantee that we won't repeat our questions. You still dare to ask repeated questions? If we repeat any more, I think our guild will be kicked out of Cloud City, Unchung Matsu said. Against the Current smiled slyly. Ha, I won't lie to you. Last night, everyone who asked who we were, I told them to say that we were from Mudcloud Guild. Unchung Matsu paused for a moment, and then suddenly laughed out loud. What's wrong? Against the Current was confused. Unchung Matsu couldn't stop laughing, and couldn't say anything. He waved his hands randomly, and then pointed at Against the Current, and then pointed at himself. After watching him for a while, Against the Current suddenly realized. You're saying that the people in your guild all say that they're drinking and singing? Unchung Matsu laughed and nodded. Fuck. Against the Current cursed. Then, he began to recall just how many times the two guilds had coincidentally come into contact with each other. Then, he counted the 47 times they had met. 47 times. Fuck, why am I so bored? I'm actually counting in my heart. Thinking up to this point, Against the Current suddenly asked Unchung Matsu, how many times did we meet tonight? Unchung Matsu gradually stopped laughing, and then answered, 48 times. Huh? 48? How did I count 47? Did you get it wrong? Against the Current said. That's right, Unchung Matsu replied. I saw you once, but you didn't see me. So, you probably didn't count. Since I didn't see you, of course it doesn't count, so you shouldn't count, Against the Current said. I'm counting how many times I'll meet you, not how many times we'll meet, Unchung Matsu said. TSK TSK TSK. The two sighed together. As they were talking, the tavern doors suddenly opened, and a person rushed in, shouting at Against the Current, Guild leader, I thought of an idea. Why don't we put up an advertisement? If we put it up everywhere in Cloud City, then people who know about it will contact us. Maybe the mage will see it and contact us himself. Against the Current's expression changed. You could have just sent a message, why did you come here? Huh? I just happened to pass by here, and I know you're drinking here. What's wrong? Against the Current didn't say anything, but the person sitting across from him slowly turned around, and laughed at the player. That's a good idea. Unchung Matsu. The player almost fainted. Now he knew why Against the Current was blaming him. But he didn't expect the two of them to be sitting together drinking. Fuck, what a good idea, and you picked it up for nothing, Against the Current said angrily. Don't worry, I won't listen to you for nothing, Unchung Matsu said. That's more like it. Let me know when you get the news. Against the Current said. What are you talking about? Unchung Matsu looked at him in surprise. Huh? Why? What I mean is, your drink is on me. Do you think I'll let you know when I get the news? Unchung Matsu laughed. Against the Current thought too highly of himself, and made a fool out of his boss. His face darkened. Don't be so happy. You're talking like you'll definitely get the news. Don't forget, our guild has more people than yours. Yeah, more idiots, Unchung Matsu laughed. Fuck, let's go. Against the Current angrily left with the players from his guild. Seeing that Gu Fei was about to be discovered again, the two's previous camaraderie immediately disappeared, and they once again stood at the starting line of the competition. Unchung Mutsu wasn't in a hurry to leave. He sat at his original table and didn't move. Not long after, a few people came to find him. "What's up, boss?" they asked as soon as they entered. Unchung Mutsu laughed. "I was just sitting with Against the Current for a while, and one of their underlings came in and gave him an idea. Unfortunately, I shared it with him." "What idea?" they asked. "Put up an advertisement," Unchung Mutsu said. "Oh." Their eyes immediately lit up. "It's not a bad idea, right? Hurry up and write more. Not only will we put it up, we'll also distribute it on the streets like flyers. No matter where it goes, as long as someone sees it, they'll find us. Write a big reward," Unchung Mutsu said. "How much is the reward?" someone asked. "This." Unchung Mutsu hesitated. It wasn't a matter of money. The main thing was that this method was also used on treat wine as songs. If they really put a price tag on it, the two guilds would probably start a price war. If that continued, the information seller would only benefit from it. He would probably have to discuss this with Against the Current. Just as Unchung Mutsu was thinking about this, Against the Current suddenly rushed in from outside the tavern. He went straight to Unchung Mutsu and said, "Let me tell you something. It can't be such a coincidence, right?" Unchung Mutsu muttered in his heart. He wants to go together again. "You guys wouldn't be stupid enough to write down the reward, right?" Against the Current asked. As expected, he wanted to go together again. Unchung Mutsu was surprised. In the end, he shook his head and smiled. "Of course not, I know what you're worried about." "Oh, that's good. We can still work together when we need to." Against the Current smiled. "You're right." Unchung Mutsu nodded. "Then let me see how you're going to write it." Against the Current calmly stood to the side. Unchung Mutsu's trusted aides were already leaning on the table and writing. Once they finished writing, they would send the content to the guild channel and the others would copy it accordingly. Now that there was such a competitor standing right beside them, the person writing the article naturally felt uncomfortable. He raised his head and stared blankly at Against the Current. "Shoo shoo shoo, what are you trying to do?" Unchung Mutsu pushed Against the Current to the side. "My two bosses, are you really not going to write down the reward?" A voice suddenly floated over. The two looked towards the source of the voice and saw a beautiful woman standing up from a nearby table. She was walking towards them. The two looked at each other and asked in unison, "What do you mean?" "If you don't write down the reward, I really don't know who I should sell this information to," the beautiful woman said. "What information?" the two asked in unison. "The level 39 sorcerer who's reborn amethyst," the beautiful woman said with a smile. The two looked at each other again and asked, "Are you amethyst who's reborn?" "No." The beautiful woman shook her head. "I just happen to know what you guys want to know." "Oh. How do you know?" "Because I know the person you're looking for," the beautiful woman said. "What's his name?" the two asked in unison. The beautiful woman was still smiling, but she didn't say anything. "Oh." The two came to their senses. Against the Current thought for a moment, then smiled and said, "Beautiful, don't leave yet." He then pulled Unchung Mutsu to the side. Chapter 171. The beauty didn't move from her spot. She went Against the Current and pulled Moody to the side. "This woman has been here all along and knows our intentions. We can't be led by the nose by her," Against the Current said. "Since we met at the same time, there's no need to fight over it. Let's name a price together and buy her information." Unchung Mutsu nodded. "That's for the best. Otherwise, one of us won't get the information and the other will be ripped off by her. What's more frightening is that after she sells one information, she'll sell another one. In the end, we'll all be ripped off," Against the Current said. "Makes sense, makes sense." Unchung Mutsu agreed. So, we have to be united, Against the Current said. Of course. The two agreed and returned to the beauty's side. The beauty smiled. How's the discussion going? Name a price. Since the two didn't plan to compete, they naturally let the other party name a price. It was a good and safe method. Oh. I want to hear how much you'll be paid. The beauty said. The two looked at each other and smiled. Beauty, don't waste time. We're all smart people, we won't compete. Just name a price and we'll buy it together. The beauty sighed helplessly. If that's the case, then 1,000 gold coins. Beauty, you're ruthless. The two glared at her. Even though a large number of players entered the game after the official launch and impacted the market, causing the price of items to rise and the value of gold coins to depreciate, it had stabilized after more than a month. 1,000 gold coins was still not a small amount. Based on the current value of equipment in the game, weapons with skills were the most valuable, especially those with special skills that weren't in the skill tree. Especially when it came with some special skills that weren't in the skill tree. This type of weapon was the best of the best. Even if the other attributes weren't good, no one would view it as trash. This type of equipment was usually purple, gold was rare, and blue was impossible. This type of equipment had no market price at all. The two parties needed to discuss it according to their own situation and needs. Currently, the highest transaction amount was 5,000 gold coins. There was no guarantee that there wouldn't be more private transactions. Next to the skill weapons were the non-skill purple, gold, blue, and white weapons. The difference between forward weapons was mainly reflected in the additional attributes. White weapons had no additional attributes, blue weapons had 1 to 2 attributes, gold weapons had 3 to 4 attributes, and purple weapons had more than 5 attributes. The price would depend on the content and value of the additional attributes. Common goods were sold for less than 100 gold coins, while the rarely seen, top-grade goods were sold for more than 1,000 gold coins. As for the legendary green word set, that was truly a legend. It had never been seen in the market, so there was no way to price it. However, according to the information leaked by the officials, the advantage of green equipment was in the hidden attributes when it was set. If it was a single piece, it would only be at the level of blue or gold equipment, and could not compare to purple equipment. The moment this beautiful lady opened her mouth and quoted the price of a piece of exquisite equipment, the two of them immediately thought that she had gone mad. It was true that both of them wanted to expand their guilds. If you offered 1,000 gold coins to guarantee that this mage would join your guild, you wouldn't hesitate. But now, it was just a person's name, and it was worth this much. Both of them felt very indignant. The beauty smiled. Is it too expensive? Let's forget about it then. Forget it, let's go post the advertisement. Against the Current said calmly, and dragged Unchung Mutsu away. Unchung Mutsu was still a little hesitant, but he resisted Against the Current because he was a warrior. Against the Current quickly sent a message while giving him a look. Don't worry, they'll definitely call us. It's just a person's name, can we still exchange it for money after we leave this village? The two of them did not work together for nothing, at least they had added each other as friends. Unchung Mutsu thought that it made sense, so he followed Against the Current out of the tavern without looking back. Guild leader, are we leaving? Unchung Mutsu's subordinates were still at the table, and when they saw that the two of them were leaving, they immediately chased after them. Let's go. Let's post the advertisement. Unchung Mutsu purposely raised his voice. Okay. The subordinates replied, and prepared to leave with the two of them. Why aren't you calling us? Seeing that the door was right in front of them, Unchung Mutsu was a little nervous. We can't turn back. Damn it, 1,000 gold coins, if you want to pay, go pay. I'd rather post the advertisement. I don't believe that with the size of Cloud City, she's the only one who knows who this mage is. Against the Current encouraged himself. But when the two of them really left the tavern, the beauty's pleasant voice still did not come. Damn, we really have to post the advertisement. Unchung Mutsu sighed. Against the Current spread his hands to express his helplessness. As he spoke, he saw two members of Against the Current walk in front of him. When they saw Against the Current, they called out to him, and then pulled out two pieces of torn paper from their notebooks and pasted them on the wall outside the tavern. "Fuck, you're too cunning. You've already pasted it," exclaimed Unchung Mutsu as he looked at the contents of the advertisement. Missing person notice, searching for a male player who has infiltrated the Reborn Amethysts Guild. If you know his identity, please contact me immediately. Then, there were the words, "Great Reward," written in huge font. At the bottom, it was the name of the person, not the name of the guild. Okay. Unchung Mutsu nodded and tapped on the piece of paper as he spoke to his subordinates, "Write it like this as well. Don't use your identity as a guild member. That'll attract too much attention." The two major guilds held a question and answer session for the entire night, putting in a lot of effort to conceal Gu Fei's strength. Gu Fei was described as an extremely perverted man who shamelessly infiltrated the female guild. In short, he did not seem like a powerful person. Hurry up and get the guild to move. When Unchung Mutsu saw that Unchung Mutsu's advertisement had been pasted up, he became anxious. He took out a small notebook and wrote 2 copies of the advertisement and pasted them on the entrance of the tavern. At the same time, he issued an order in the guild channel, "Move fast. We'll paste the places where Unchung Mutsu has posted, we'll paste the places where they haven't." "The words aren't bad," said Countercurrent as he looked at the 2 flamboyant advertisements written by Unchung Mutsu. Let me tell you, we're in a healthy competition. Everyone can paste, but you're not allowed to tear each other's," said Unchung Mutsu. Of course, unity is necessary," Countercurrent said as he issued an order in the guild channel, "I've made an agreement with Yunmu. Everyone, if you see their advertisement, don't tear it. If you don't tear it, we can paste our advertisement on top of theirs." Unchung Mutsu was really full of resourceful people. "Ugh, everyone, do as you see fit." Countercurrent's words were full of hints, but it sounded like he didn't agree or disagree. As a leader, they needed to master the skill of ambiguity. This way, they could let their subordinates do as they see fit. They could take credit and push responsibility, and everyone would be happy. Afterwards, the 2 guilds busied themselves with work. The walls of the streets, the doors of the shops, and the frequently used roads in Cloud City were pasted with their advertisements. Unchung Mutsu even ordered his subordinates to scatter some of the advertisements on the city walls and the clock tower. "Let the wind spread our message." This was the advertisement from Yunmu. For a moment, paper flowers were flying all over Cloud City. Everywhere the players went, they could see the same advertisement. Many people could already recite it. The operators sent by the 2 guilds quickly received calls asking about the reward and what kind of information they needed. "Hello, we will pay you a suitable reward based on the information you provide. If you have information about this person, we hope to talk to you face to face." The operators of both guilds responded with prepared lines. Soon, someone requested to talk to them face to face. Unchung Mutsu and Countercurrent were overjoyed. They each set up a reception area and waited for the information to come to them. However, the development of the situation quickly made the 2 feel that something was wrong. This was because more and more people requested to talk to them face to face, and all of them said that they had information. The 2 suddenly realized that they knew nothing about the mage, so they couldn't determine whether the information sent by the people was real or fake. Looking at the current situation, the 2 had every reason to believe that the people who came to talk to them were liars. This was one of the disadvantages of using an individual's identity to buy information. If it was a guild, many people would have to think twice. After all, the consequences of offending a guild were much more serious. However, now that it was an individual, the other party ran away after deceiving them, not taking them seriously at all. In the blink of an eye, the 2 reception areas had collected 37 aliases for Gu Fei. The people in charge of the reception were not stupid, and realized that things were not as they imagined. However, They didn't know if any of these people were real, so they couldn't accept them, but they couldn't reject them either. On the other hand, those who were here to earn money had already quietly retreated when they saw the situation. The ones who were left were shameless for money, and they stuck out their necks and said that their information was real. These 37 nicknames had been forcefully spat out. A bunch of players accused others of being liars, while saying that they were real and asking for rewards from the receptionists. Seeing that they were going to be PK'd if they didn't pay up, Countercurrent and Unchung Mutsu led their people to their reception area. Looking at the list of names that their subordinates had collected, the two were heartbroken. The moral degeneration of the world was getting worse by the day. Even the culture in the game wasn't simple at all. Countercurrent tried to add the names provided by these people, but none of them were online. There was even a name called Butterfly Blue that he couldn't find. "Who gave you this name?" Countercurrent asked kindly. Someone's eyes lit up, and he quickly jumped out, "It's me, it's me." "You fucking idiot. You don't even know how to scam people. Make a fake name, I'll show you that there's no such person." Countercurrent was instantly enraged, and threw out a string of spells, killing the person on the spot. He then slammed his staff on the ground, and shook off the piece of paper with the names recorded on it. Who else says that their information is real? No one dared to speak, and they stuck out their tongues, saying that it was a joke, and left dejectedly. This method doesn't seem to work either. Countercurrent frowned. "We need to get them to show us strong evidence that can convince us," one of his subordinates suggested. Against the Current nodded. Those who escaped earlier were obviously liars. If they were not guilty, they could naturally stay behind and argue with them. Not all the players agreed to come at this time. After chasing away the first group, there were others who tried to fish in troubled waters. At this time, they were proven to be liars, and they were all threatened by Countercurrent's inhumane threat. In addition, with the update of the advertisement content, the players finally realized that fishing in troubled waters was not going to work here. Thus, half an hour passed, and the reception area around him was deserted. "How's it going on your side?" Countercurrent sent a message to Unchung Mutsu. "I'm busy," Unchung Mutsu said. "Ah. Did you find out?" Countercurrent was startled. "I'm washing PK, my PK value is 28. Unchung Mutsu cried, "I was almost caught by the patrol just now." Countercurrent laughed. It seemed that Unchung Mutsu's temper was more explosive than his, and he killed all the people who tried to fish in troubled waters. Is there really no one in the entire Cloud City who knows him? Countercurrent thought, impossible, it must be that the people who know him are not online. Or, the people online are his good friends. Sigh. Going against the current, he thought of a double-edged sword in their plan. Because they didn't want other guilds to know of such a strong person, they tried their best to hide the wizard's strength, and described him from the perspective of the only male player in Amethyst. Therefore, the listeners thought that they were a group of people seeking revenge. Under these circumstances, the wizard's friends would probably not betray him. They didn't know that the big guilds wanted him to join them, and that was a good thing. Going against the current, he felt vexed. The plan that he thought was well planned turned out to be full of pros and cons. Now, the pros were unknown, but the cons were all exposed. The player in charge of reception had nothing to do for half an hour, and he had stayed up all night. His head was like a chicken pecking at grains, dozing off, and he was about to fall asleep on the table. Going against the current, he was also very sleepy. He had not done anything for the entire night except for this. It seemed that there was no result if he continued like this, so he might as well try again tomorrow when there were more players online. Just as he was about to order the stall to be closed, a person floated over. Countercurrent looked up and was stunned. "It's you. The beauty in the tavern." The beauty was still smiling, and said to Countercurrent, "How's the result of your advertisement?" Going against the current, he remained silent. At least the woman could confidently say that the wizard was level 39, which was more reliable than the others. She most likely knew the person. But now that Countercurrent was here, he couldn't admit that his advertisement business was a failure, or the woman would take the opportunity to raise the price again. 1,000 gold coins. Should he pay or not? Against the Current was already subconsciously considering this question. There was another thing that attracted him, and that was Unchung Mutsu's absence. The two of them may have gotten along well, but when it came to this matter, Countercurrent wished that he could find the wizard and not Unchung Mutsu. This was a great opportunity for the woman to find him and not Unchung Mutsu. He could spend 1,000 gold to buy this information. Countercurrent was a little tempted, but he soon felt that it was inappropriate. After tonight's experience, he knew that people's hearts weren't what they used to be. Even if the woman took 1,000 gold and promised not to tell Unchung Mutsu, how would he know that she would keep her promise? People who wanted to make a fortune with this stuff would most likely extort money from Unchung Mutsu after extorting him. This woman was so greedy for 1,000 gold, she would probably do the same. "What are you thinking about, boss?" the beauty asked as she looked at Countercurrent's changing expression. "Beauty, your price is too high," Countercurrent said. "Is that so?" The beauty smiled faintly. "I thought that after what just happened, you would realize the value of the information in my hands." "You knew it would be like this." Countercurrent's expression froze. He and Unchung Mutsu hadn't expected this result, but this woman had already thought of it. She reacted quickly and was very knowledgeable. The beauty just smiled. "What do you want now?" Countercurrent asked. "Continue peddling the information in my hands." The beauty said. "We only want to know a name." "Beauty, your price is too much." Countercurrent didn't back down. The beauty slowly shook her head. "Looks like you don't do business often. But you should have heard of the story of rare goods, right? Some seemingly insignificant things, at specific times, will have a specific value. The only question is whether you can grasp it or not." Countercurrent sneered. "You think a name is a rare good? You've been busy for 2 days and haven't gotten anything. How is that not a rare good?" The beauty retorted. "I've only been busy for a night. There aren't many people at night, but I'll definitely be able to find out in the morning," Countercurrent said. The beauty smiled. "I'm more familiar with his situation. I can tell you responsibly that the situation you'll encounter tomorrow will be exactly the same as tonight. That's because no one knows him." Countercurrent was stunned for a moment, then suddenly smiled. "It's night now, and the reincarnated amethyst aren't online. When they're online tomorrow, do you think I won't be able to find out? Don't tell me that the reincarnated amethyst don't know him. I do know him." The beauty smiled. "But do you think I'll tell them not to expose that person's identity? Because someone is trying to poach them. The men and women who have been close to them recently may all have bad intentions. You." Countercurrent didn't expect their intentions to be seen through by this woman. "How long have you been paying attention to us?" "Oh, not too long. It's only when people kept asking me if I'm a reincarnated amethyst, and if I know anything about a male reincarnated amethyst player, that I started paying attention," the beauty said. "It was then that I realized I had a rare good in my hands. It's a rare good, so of course I have to manage it well. Don't worry, other than me, you won't be able to find anyone else to ask about him." "Are you trying to scare me?" I really want to try and see if you're really the only one who can do it." Against the Current said. "Hee, go ahead and try. But let me remind you that after tomorrow night's match, if you still haven't tested him out, the price will increase. You should know that the guilds that haven't been eliminated are all big guilds. I'm sure they're like you, eager to recruit strong players into their guilds." Who's the reincarnated amethyst's opponent tomorrow?" "I haven't checked it out yet." "TSK, but it doesn't matter. With his strength, regardless of whether the reincarnated amethyst wins or loses, he'll still attract attention. But I hope he wins. The more stages he passes, the more attention he'll attract. When all the major guilds want to know his name, TSK, I wonder how much I can ask for." The beauty winked slyly after she finished speaking, her face full of longing. Without waiting for Countercurrent to speak again, she waved her sleeves and turned around. After taking 2 steps, she turned around and smiled. I'll be leaving first. Think about it, boss Countercurrent. Before tomorrow's match, I'll set the price at 1,000 gold coins. If you need anything, send it to my mailbox. My name is Shi Xiaotian. After saying that, Shi Xiaotian floated away, leaving Countercurrent and a few other guild members in a daze. To buy or not to buy for 1,000 gold coins, this was a question. Chapter 172. The sky was already bright. Whether it was in the game or in real life, it was still early in the morning. A gentle breeze caressed his face, and a few pieces of paper flew against the current like paper kites, slowly floating over his head, swaying back and forth. Unfortunately, Upstream's mood was not as energetic as the sun at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. He waved his hand, and a small fireball flew out, burning the few pieces of paper floating in the wind into ashes. The sun had risen. Upstream's investigation of a certain sorcerer was fruitless, and he was in a bad mood. Apart from that, he also asked around about this woman named Shi Xiaotian through the guild members. In the end, he found out quite a bit about this woman. She seemed to be a very famous person in the trading world. It was said that the price she quoted was neither too high nor too low. She had the air of a price vane in Cloud City. A professional merchant? Upstream frowned. He had always hated this kind of person. He felt that as a gamer, it was shameful to think about doing business all day instead of leveling up and farming. Upstream never recognized the value of this kind of person. I'd rather die than let this kind of person earn 1,000 gold coins, Upstream thought to himself. At the same time, he was a little worried because of Unchung Matsu. If Shi Xiaotian approached Unchung Matsu, perhaps this guy would buy it. Back in the tavern, Unchung Matsu did not leave resolutely enough. Unchung Matsu was still online in his friend list. Upstream sent him a message, "What are you doing?" "Just finished PvP, getting ready to go offline." Unchung Matsu let out a long sigh. "Do you have any clues?" Upstream asked. "No. I'm going to talk about it during the day." "There are indeed not many people who pull all-nighters," Unchung Matsu replied. "Did the woman in the tavern look for you again?" Against the Current was not in the mood to beat around the bush, so he got straight to the point. "No." Unchung Matsu said, "You're still thinking about her? Are you crazy? 1,000 gold coins. I'm willing to fork out 100 gold coins to look for that reborn amethyst chick. I don't believe that there's no one who's greedy for money. They're just asking for his name. We don't even know if we can poach him. Do they have to be so cautious?" "Yes, you're right," Upstream replied. This was also one of the methods he had thought of. "Let's not talk anymore, I'm too tired. I'm going offline." Moody in the Cloud replied with the last message and left the game. Against the Current was also very tired at this time, so he immediately made an announcement in the guild channel, reminding those who were online during the day to remember to continue this task. Anyone who found out about this information would also be rewarded by the guild. After making the necessary arrangements, I went against the Current and headed towards the nearest safe zone, the Mage Academy, with a few of my friends. Just as they were about to arrive, someone behind them suddenly shouted, "Wanted mission. If there's nothing else, get out of here." Countercurrent was taken aback. Indeed, he had PK points on him. Although he wasn't as crazy as Unchung Matsu, there were still some shameless people that he couldn't tolerate, so he killed them. At night, Countercurrent's PK points had also reached 6 points. He even specifically reminded Unchung Matsu, who was crazily clearing PK points, not to accept him. However, he didn't expect that there would still be people who wanted to clear PK points on him. This didn't make sense. Other than an accident like Unchung Matsu, who would accept a quest with PK points as high as 6 points. It was currently 5 o'clock, and it was probably not far from 4 o'clock. Countercurrent and the others slowly turned around, looking at the unscientific guy behind them, and tears instantly welled up in his eyes. I've been searching for him in the crowd for 1,000 times, but when I look back, he's right behind me. Agitated, Countercurrent pointed at the person, you, for a long time, but he couldn't say a word. The person standing behind him was indeed Gu Fei. As a physical education teacher, most of the time, there were no classes in the morning, but normally, Gu Fei wouldn't use his working hours to play games. It was just that after the 2 matches last night, Gu Fei had reached level 40, so he wanted to complete the class advancement quest so that he could study it in actual combat during the match at night. That was why he hurried back to the game after his morning exercise. After he went online, he headed towards the Mage Academy from the offline safe zone. On the way, he happened to pass by the wanted quest. It was probably because he had been here for more than a month to accept quests repeatedly that he had gotten used to it. When he passed by this place, he turned into the quest publishing hall and scanned through the Cloud City's wanted list. He found a fat sheep with 5 PK points. This was relatively rare in Cloud City, so of course, Gu Fei happily accepted it. It was only after he left the hall that he realized that the quest had already been accepted. Gu Fei's wanted experience was incomparably rich. After looking at the coordinates, he knew that it was in the city. He immediately decided to complete this wanted quest first. Yutian Shinming had completed 100 wanted quests and received the Windchaser emblem. Naturally, he returned Gu Fei's one. At this time, the coordinates were refreshed every minute. After a few minutes, Gu Fei had already determined the direction that the person was heading towards, Mage Academy. Gu Fei was very pleased. He could just kill him and then complete the class advancement quest. It was really convenient. After that, he continued on his way to the Mage Academy. After passing through an alley, he saw a wanted target in front of him. He immediately issued his trademark warning, "Wanted mission, if there's nothing to do, get out of here." After that, he saw the other person turn around, looking very excited. One of them pointed at him and kept saying, you. Gu Fei immediately followed up, "That's right, it's you. Everyone else, move aside." As he spoke, he was afraid that the person would run away, so he chased a few steps forward. At this time, he recognized that the person looked familiar. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Oh. It's you, the guild leader of Singing to Wine." "Ah, that's right, it's me. We've met before." Against the Current was very pleased. The other person still recognized him, so it was much easier to talk to him. In the end, Gu Fei rubbed his hands excitedly, "It's an expert. This is exciting." After saying that, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the night streamer. He looked at the others beside Against the Current and said, "Are you guys going to make a move?" The few of them looked at each other, then at Against the Current. "Wait." Against the Current hurriedly shouted, "Actually, we've been looking for you all night." "Ha, I know." Gu Fei casually waved his hand and caught a piece of paper that flew through the air. He held it in front of his eyes and read aloud, "Looking for a male mage player in the Reborn Amethyst Guild. If you know his whereabouts, please contact me. There will be a heavy reward." This is from you guys, right?" Against the Current shook his head, "Not that one." As he said that, he tapped the ground with his foot and pointed at the palm-sized advertisement pasted on the stone pavement. "That one is. Thank you for your hard work," Gu Fei said sincerely. He had seen quite a few advertisements along the way, so he could imagine that the workload was quite heavy. If not for the fact that he was in a hurry, he would have contacted the person written on the advertisement. "Not at all, it's worth it." Against the Current was still being humble. Gu Fei took 2 steps forward and tilted his head to look at the advertisement on the ground. It also says that there will be a heavy reward. How much is this? Now that I've personally come to your doorstep, shouldn't it be doubled or something?" Against the Current was startled for a moment, then immediately said, "Of course. Name your price." In order to recruit this powerful person, Against the Current decided to use every means possible to curry favor with him. Even if it was 1,000 gold coins, giving it directly to this person was still much better than giving it to Shi Xiaotian, right? Even if he failed to recruit him in the end, it would still be good news. Who would have thought that Gu Fei would only laugh? Name your price, I was just joking. As he said that, he waved his hand and a purplish-black sword light flashed. Come. Gu Fei stood there with rapt attention. What for? Against the Current was startled. A bounty quest, my target is you. Gu Fei said. After all this time, he had wasted his time trying to get close to him. Against the Current almost fainted, saying, Don't be in such a hurry, listen to what I'm looking for you for. I know what it is, I'll join your guild. No need, my current guild is pretty good. Gu Fei said. That day when Against the Current brought people to the tavern to ask about Gu Fei, he was in the private room next to them. Of course he knew why Against the Current was looking for him. Against the Current knew that things wouldn't go so smoothly. Even from the perspective of a normal player, a male player infiltrating a purely female guild was something that many people dreamed of. From this perspective, Gu Fei had already reached the pinnacle of his guild career. No matter how big the guild was, it wouldn't be able to shake his determination. Unless it was a purely female guild with even more beautiful women. Reborn Amethyst. What's the point of a small guild like this? Against the Current tried to change Gu Fei's perception from the perspective of values. It's not that interesting. Gu Fei nodded in agreement. That's why you should come to our big guild. Against the Current was overjoyed. Could it be that he was so talented that he could change the minds of others with just a few words? No matter how big the guild is, it's not that interesting. Gu Fei said. Against the Current realized that he was thinking too highly of himself, then what's interesting? Gu Fei waved the sword in his hand, come. Ugh. Against the Current frowned, immediately coming to a conclusion about Gu Fei, PvP maniac. This kind of talent shouldn't be kept in a female guild. Against the Current's eagerness grew. Looking at Gu Fei's eagerness, he suddenly had an idea. In that case, let's make a bet. Let's fight one-on-one. If you lose, you'll join my guild. If you win, I'll. If I win, you'll go to jail. There won't be any other punishment. Gu Fei said. If you win, I'll give you this staff, Countercurrent said as he pulled out his aqua blue staff. Chapter 173. Gu Fei didn't say anything else. It wasn't that he wanted Upstream's staff, but if he placed a higher bet, this person would be more serious in the fight. That would be more meaningful. Thinking of this, he waved his sword and said, Don't go easy on me. It doesn't matter if you die, I will keep my promise. Gu Fei knew very well that going easy on him would greatly affect his strength. Against the Current, he smiled and said, Come. There weren't many informants in the morning, and the streets were deserted. Upstream's companions retreated to the side and waited for the two of them to make their move. Gu Fei took a deep breath and his expression turned serious. Upstream was ranked 9th on the sorcerer ranking. He was a top-tier sorcerer in the parallel world. Gu Fei didn't dare to underestimate these experts in the game. In many aspects, Gu Fei couldn't compare to them. The staff in Upstream's hand was very eye-catching, and it was obviously an exquisite item. This person's magic damage was probably at the level of being able to kill instantly. Fireball, shoot! Gu Fei was the first to attack. He cast a fireball and chased after it. Fireball, shoot! Upstream also cast a fireball, and then the staff in his hand slammed on the ground. Frozen ice path, go! The ground made a bow sound, followed by the continuous sound of footsteps that sounded like people walking on snow. A layer of ice that was more than a meter wide formed on the ground, and it spread toward Gu Fei's feet. Gu Fei had never seen such a strange scene before. He was stunned, but he quickly took 2 steps to the side. The path paved with crushed ice covered the spot where Gu Fei had just landed, sparkling and translucent as the morning sun shone upon it. "What is this?" Gu Fei asked curiously as he flicked away the fireball in front of him. "Hee, it's a skill learned from a scroll." "Fireball, shoot!" Upstream replied as he completed his chant. A fireball ignited between his fingers, and it blocked the fireball that Gu Fei shot. The 2 fireballs collided and shattered into sparks. "Not simple," Gu Fei exclaimed. The technique and eyesight required to steadily summon a fireball to block the opponent's fireball was even more difficult than directly swinging a sword to deflect the fireball. "Excuse me," Countercurrent said humbly as he poked the ground with his staff again. "Frozen path, let's go." Another wave of crushed ice came flying over. Gu Fei dodged to the side disapprovingly and said with a smile, "This move is quite nice, but it's too slow." "How can it hit me?" "Ice tornado." "Swirl." This time, Countercurrent didn't say anything. After chanting, he unleashed an ice tornado. Gu Fei moved his body sideways in an attempt to dodge, but the ice whirlwind clearly changed direction towards Gu Fei's direction. With this skill, the caster could control its movement for a certain period of time at the cost of continuous mana consumption. The ice whirlwind wasn't slow, and its movement speed was only slightly faster than superhuman slender waist dance. Naturally, Gu Fei, who was slightly slower than slender waist dance, couldn't catch up. Moreover, Countercurrent's remote control skill was quite good. During the match that day, he had controlled an ice whirlwind to block slender waist dance, which was faster than him. Now, controlling it to hit Gu Fei wasn't a difficult task. Seeing that he couldn't dodge it, Gu Fei made a prompt decision. He shouted, "Dual Flame Flash," and met the attack head-on. Relying on his high proficiency in the Dual Flame Flash, he dispersed the ice tornado. Countercurrent didn't panic. He waved his hand and unleashed another ice whirlwind. Gu Fei cursed inwardly. His lack of mana was a big problem. At most, he could only use Dual Flame Flash 4 times. Countercurrent seemed to have seen through this, so he wanted to exhaust Gu Fei's mana. While he was thinking, the ice whirlwind had already arrived in front of him. Gu Fei helplessly unleashed another Dual Flame Flash to deal with it, but then quickly pointed his sword and said, "Heaven's Descent Wheel of Fire, descend." "Hee, your spell's delay is very long, don't you know?" Countercurrent laughed. "Of course I know," Gu Fei said. "Also, you can't trick me. With this spell of yours, I don't even need to move. But it's better to take 2 more steps forward. It's safer." Going against the current said as he leisurely took 2 steps forward. Then, flames appeared in the sky behind him, and a ring of fire descended from the sky. Countercurrent glanced back and laughed. Sure enough, those 2 steps were unnecessary. "You're quite accurate with your spells. You really are an expert." Gu Fei was also shocked. With his spell's delay, if he were to attack someone with a spell, they would have enough time to run away. So, he had to calculate his opponent's direction, and then launch a deceptive attack. The attack just now was because he thought that if he went against the current, he might be able to take advantage of the situation to pull away from Gu Fei. That was why he threw the Heaven's Descent flame wheel behind him, hoping to hit him head-on. However, he didn't expect him to see through it. This was also very helpless. Gu Fei completely relied on guessing to predict the attack, but Countercurrent didn't. When casting a spell, during the chanting process, the hand or the weapon in the hand had to be pointed at the target. An experienced mage like Countercurrent had already determined the location of the Heaven's Descent Wheel of Fire from Gu Fei's Darkstreak sword. Using the terminology that Gu Fei had come across since he started practicing martial arts, Countercurrent's eyes were fast, but Gu Fei's hands were too slow, so naturally he couldn't hit him at all. Ice Whirlwind, spin. Countercurrent once again summoned an ice whirlwind. But this time, Gu Fei was prepared, and he dashed out horizontally. He could only cast dual flame flash again. Even if he could hit it this time, he wouldn't be able to hit it again. Therefore, he could only dodge and try to get close to upstream before the ice whirlwind caught up to him. Or, when the ice whirlwind caught up to him, he could use a dual flame flash to kill both upstream and the ice whirlwind. Thinking like this, Gu Fei's body moved quickly. He took a few steps diagonally, but this was the frigid path that Countercurrent had used before. The first one had already disappeared, but the second one was still there. Gu Fei didn't dare to step on it, so he lightly jumped over it. At the same time, he suddenly heard Countercurrent chant again, "Frigid path, go." There was the same "bow" sound, but the speed was different. This time, the frigid path had already helped Gu Fei set up a foothold. Gu Fei took large strides, trying not to let his feet touch the ice, but he was still a step too slow. Creak, creak. Gu Fei steadily stepped on the frigid path. Suddenly, a chill rose from the soles of his feet, and he lost all feeling in his legs. He wanted to take a step, but he didn't have the strength to do so, so he slowly moved half an inch. Just as upstream was about to say a few pleasantries, he suddenly saw Gu Fei put his sword back into his pocket, took off his Dark Moon's spiritual robe, and pointed at the ground with his other hand as he muttered something. "Hey, what are you doing?" Countercurrent was startled. The frigid path had frozen Gu Fei. He felt that victory and defeat had been decided, but he was confused by Gu Fei's strange actions. Gu Fei smiled slightly. "I'm chanting." "Ah." Countercurrent didn't react in time. Suddenly, flames rose from Gu Fei's feet and engulfed him. Self-immolation. This guy wants to say that he committed suicide, so he didn't lose to me. Isn't he being shameless? As Countercurrent was thinking, he suddenly saw Gu Fei rushing out of the flames. He was instantly dumbfounded. Gu Fei's speed had obviously recovered, but the freezing effect shouldn't have been so short. Could it be that the Thousand Layers flames had removed the freezing effect? Logically speaking, fire was hot, so removing the freezing effect was reasonable. But Countercurrent didn't know if there was such a setting in the game. Even if there was, not many people would mess around like this. If he was hit by the freezing effect, then he would definitely suffer some damage. If he was hit by the fire tree Thousand Layers flames, then wouldn't he really be burnt to ashes? Using a small fireball to warm his hands was still reasonable. Although Countercurrent thought this way, the reality was that not only did Gu Fei's Thousand Layers flames remove the freezing effect, the ice whirlwind that chased him also disappeared in the flames. There really is someone messing around like this. Countercurrent didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Gu Fei had already arrived in front of him. Countercurrent didn't panic and said indifferently, "You've already lost." "What?" Gu Fei was startled. "Do you still have mana?" Countercurrent smiled. 2 double flame flashes, 1 heavenly fire wheel, and 1 blazing tree Thousand Layers flames. He had even thrown a small fireball earlier. Judging from Gu Fei's actions during the Celestial Guild Assembly, going against the current must have exhausted his mana. Gu Fei smiled faintly. "I can't beat you in terms of spells because that's not my strong suit." After saying that, he took out the baptism of fire from his pocket and slashed at Countercurrent. Countercurrent was shocked. He didn't expect this mage to be so strong. He even had a knife hidden on him. Even without mana, he was fighting in melee. He really didn't have the demeanor of a mage at all. Just as he was thinking this, the knife was already slashing at his head. Countercurrent's reaction speed wasn't slow, and he raised his staff to meet the attack. They didn't expect Gu Fei's slash to be a feint to bully amateurs like them. Seeing that Countercurrent's staff had been drawn in, Gu Fei immediately retracted his sword and changed his move, slashing horizontally at Countercurrent's waist. Countercurrent was hit by the knife, but when he saw the damage, he relaxed. He was afraid that Gu Fei had some strange tricks up his sleeve. But when he saw the damage, he realized that melee really wasn't a mage's strong suit. Resist. Countercurrent was just about to summon a flame ring of resistance, but Gu Fei's second attack came unexpectedly fast. He only managed to say 2 words before the second attack landed on him. Not only was his chanting interrupted, but Gu Fei's blade also suddenly burned with a red light, and with a touch, it burned Upstream's body. Enchantment. Countercurrent was startled. This attack method was very popular for a time because a guy with the number 27,149 used this method to trample on a thief, which attracted a lot of attention. And this person was a mage, and his origin was Cloud City. Countercurrent finally lost his calm. Was this mage in front of him that guy? If that was the case, he could trample on thieves in melee. Perhaps it was as he said, he wasn't good at spells. It's over. Countercurrent spat out these 2 words in his heart. He wanted to chant, but he was once again interrupted by Gu Fei's quick knife, and the enchantment was ignited again. The enchantment of a mage was not weak. Chapter 174. Gu Fei was fast, but his sword was even faster. One slash after another, Countercurrent's face was glowing red. He was still alive after so many slashes. One reason was that Gu Fei was unlucky today and didn't use many enchantments. 2. Countercurrent was PvP with a mage, so he used a lot of equipment that could absorb spell damage, which weakened the enchantments. Even so, it was only a matter of time before he died if he continued to endure the slashes. At first, Countercurrent's guild members thought that Gu Fei would be easily killed by Countercurrent if he got close. They didn't expect this to happen. Countercurrent was completely passive. Swimming against the current was completely passive. He wanted to chant but was repeatedly interrupted by Gu Fei. Every time he sang, it was all for naught. They looked at each other. Should they help? This was a problem. Countercurrent was the one who suggested the duel. Now that they saw that he was in a bad situation, they immediately helped him. This was no different from slapping Countercurrent's face. They hesitated for a moment and finally sighed. They didn't do anything to help. Gu Fei's sword technique was executed in one breath. He was completely immersed in it and slashed happily. Finally, he turned into a streak of white light and disappeared. Gu Fei's eyes were still filled with regret. 2 more strokes and he would have been able to use all 3 stances of the Tang Saber's 9 consecutive interrupting waves. What a pity. Gu Fei shook his head. He put the sword back into his pocket and looked at his health. It was so red that it was in the single digits. If he were to swim against the current, he would be able to kill Gu Fei with just a few strikes of his staff, let alone using magic. That was close. Gu Fei sighed. Fortunately, he was doing a bounty quest, so he was wearing the Windchaser emblem, and not Eddie's emblem. Otherwise, with the additional 6 points of intelligence from Eddie's emblem, and the slightly higher spell attack, Gu Fei wouldn't have the chance to rush out of the fire if his Cinder Tree 1000 Layers flames burned a few more HP. Gu Fei reviewed the PvP process and summarized the lessons learned. He took out a piece of bread from his pocket and ate it to replenish his health. Then, he looked at the few spectators who were drinking and singing by the side of the street. Although their expressions were rather absent-minded, it was clear that they had no intention of fighting with Gu Fei. What a good character. Gu Fei was disappointed. He really hoped that these people had bad character and would jump up to take revenge on him the moment they saw that they were killed because they went against the current. Are you guys alright? If there's nothing else, I'm leaving. Gu Fei was unwilling. The few of them shook their heads. Then I'll take my leave, Gu Fei said to the others. Wait, brother, what's your name? Someone asked. Qianli is drunk, Gu Fei replied. The man nodded. Then, they watched as Gu Fei left for the Mage Academy. It was early in the morning, so the academy was relatively deserted. Gu Fei went straight to the NPC teacher who usually taught mages. Seeing that Gu Fei was already level 40, the NPC teacher took the initiative to ask Gu Fei if he wanted to change his class. Naturally, Gu Fei said yes. As a result, the teacher quickly gave him the class advancement quest. Gu Fei, who was invincible in the PvP arena, was instantly stunned by this quest. The quest was simple, but it fully exposed the inner world of the game company. This quest could be summarized in one word: money. There was nothing to do but to pay a class change fee of 200 gold coins. This wasn't a lot of money, but it wasn't a small amount either. The main problem was that Gu Fei didn't have it. Gu Fei didn't have money. To be precise, he didn't have 200 gold coins. In total, Gu Fei only had 37 gold coins, 21 silver coins, and 78 copper coins. The first two mercenary deals had made Gu Fei rich for a while. It was because of those two deals that Gu Fei hadn't realized the problem of money until now. Otherwise, with his extravagant expenses of eating an apple for every 4 spells, he wouldn't have been able to last until today if he didn't focus on managing his wallet. Now, faced with the system's exorbitant demand for the class change quest, Gu Fei realized the insignificance of his wallet. After leaving the Mage Academy dejectedly, Gu Fei still had the wanted quest hanging on his neck. So, he activated the Wind Chaser emblem and sent himself back to the wanted quest hall. Quest complete, reward received. He had experience and money. Normally, this small amount of money was enough to satisfy Gu Fei. But now, with the mountain of 200 gold coins on his shoulders, Gu Fei suddenly realized how harsh the system was. I spent so much time killing a person and almost got myself killed, and all I got is this little bit of money. How inhumane. Gu Fei complained to another player who was choosing a quest. This person turned his head and looked at Gu Fei. Yeah, this quest is extremely risky, and the rewards aren't that great. The price-to-performance ratio is really low. No wonder it's so quiet, no one's doing this quest. Gu Fei looked around. The entire hall was empty except for him and the person in front of him. That's not it. The person in front of him said, "Did you know? There's a person in our city who loves doing these trash quests. He comes every day to do them." "Oh. Have you seen him before?" "No, I heard it from someone else. I heard that he's a mage. He wears a black robe and his weapon is a sword. He seems pretty strong." "You said that he's strong, but why is he so stupid as to do these trash quests?" The person said as he accepted the quest and turned his head to look at Gu Fei. Now that he paid attention, he realized that the person in front of him was a mage. He was wearing a black robe. He then rummaged around in his pocket for a long time and pulled out a purple sword. He held it in front of him and asked, "Are you talking about this sword?" "No, of course not," the person said decisively. "Actually, bounty quests are also very meaningful. You see, I'm doing one right now, right? Alright, I've accepted the quest. I'll be leaving first." After saying this, the person immediately disappeared, leaving Gu Fei alone in the empty hall. Money. Where can I get money? After leaving the hall, Gu Fei was still troubled by this problem. Money was indeed a thing that affected harmony. At this moment, Gu Fei was even grumbling to the young master of the Han family. The mercenary group didn't even manage properly, and only did business twice. Thinking of business, Gu Fei suddenly had an idea. Ever since he killed monsters and leveled up, Gu Fei had obtained quite a few items. Because these common items were sold in the auction house, it was very easy to lose money. If he wanted to sell these items, he had to set up a stall and sell them himself. Now that Gu Fei was short on money, he had no choice but to become a merchant. Thinking about this, he went to the warehouse near the city gate and looked into his storage box. After a long time of accumulation, there were quite a lot of items. Fortunately, he had been doing bounty quests every day and had less time to kill monsters and level up. Otherwise, he wouldn't have enough storage boxes. Gu Fei took out a sack and put the items in the storage into it. Speaking of this sack, it had a long history. When Gu Fei was ranked second in efficiency, the items he obtained every day were counted by sacks. Later, because of a misunderstanding, he threw this sack to June Rain. Later, June Rain used it to carry food and drinks to Moonlit Night City. It wasn't until the tournament started that June Rain returned from Moonlit Night City and solemnly returned the sack to its owner. From this sack, Gu Fei could vaguely see the days when he worked hard to kill monsters. He was filled with emotion. Swiftly filling the sack and carrying it on his shoulder, Gu Fei staggered towards the trade street. Along the way, he excitedly calculated, 1 piece of equipment for 10 gold, 2 pieces for 20 gold, 20 pieces for 200 gold. At this time of the morning, every place in the game was very quiet, but there was one place that was an exception, and that was the second trade street. This street was formed after the official launch of the game. At that time, the players that occupied the second trade street were all veterans from the open beta. The quality of the goods in their hands was relatively high. For most of the new players, they could only lament their inadequacy due to the price. Therefore, the new players could only gradually form a market that suited them according to their own needs. This was the beginning of the second trade street. The second trade street developed very quickly because the new players were always full of enthusiasm. They were online for a long time every day, and their numbers were much higher than the open beta players. This caused the second trade street to be filled with people selling their goods at all times. Even after the birth of the third and fourth trade streets, only the second trade street continued with this enthusiasm. Players in Cloud City knew that the second trade street was the best place to do business at night or early in the morning when there were fewer people online. Only here was full of life at all times. Gu Fei had heard of the second trade street for a long time, but this was the first time he had set foot on it. Just like the rumors said, at this time of the day, the second trade street did not change at all. And because of this special time of the day, the players on the second trade street all had a special appearance, they all had a sleepy face. But upon closer inspection, the sleepy faces were also different. They were mainly divided into 2 groups. One group had sleepy eyes, but they were full of energy. This group was the type that just woke up and went to play. The other group had sleepy faces and didn't even have the energy to speak. This group was obviously the type that hadn't slept through the night. Gu Fei walked on the street, looking for a suitable space for his stall. Compared to normal players, Gu Fei's sack of goods was too much. A normal space wouldn't be able to accommodate him. After walking a quarter of the street, Gu Fei finally saw a relatively large empty space. He immediately took a step forward and put down the sack. With a crash, Gu Fei's goods were all over the empty space. There were even a few that were hopping and jumping to the middle of the road. Wow! Countless players' eyes were drawn over, especially the 2 on Gu Fei's left and right. Their eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. Gu Fei's goods were piled up like a small mountain. The 2's stalls only had a few items. In comparison, their stalls were too small. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.